It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So you just heard it right there. How about that for a timely promo? Headed right into it, and now you're going to hold the feet to the fire on what we are doing today, and that is indeed correct. Justin Wally joins us today. So too Stephen Holder, who is standing right in the shadows right now, and everything about to get underway. You can probably hear it in the background, depending on the level of astute nature of these microphones, hearing the ramped up audio in the background because they have big speakers out here at the Drop Light Grand Park in Westfield. We learned yesterday, and I apologize. I totally apologize that I was unaware until yesterday that Grand Park now has a corporate sponsor in Drop Light. So, Eddie Garrison, I will begin the day by asking you of this question now that you've gotten sleep since your late night with Seattle the other night. Do you know what Drop Light is? Are we aware of what Drop Light is?
I am not.
Maybe I should ask. Steve Campbell's here. He might know the answer to that. Steve, do you happen to know what Drop Light is? Drop Light Grand Park. Steve does not either. I'm going to look up what. I hope it's something appropriate. I mean, now that I'm sitting here giving it all kinds of attention, we are again out here at Colts camp. It is day number 2. Practice getting set to get underway. I will answer that riddle here.
Oh, I got it for you, Jake.
Before too long. What's that?
I got it for you. It's very close to your heart. If this is what I think it is, Drop Light is a cultural engine that builds brands, accelerates founders, and connects the world of racing culture and innovation under one pulse.
Really?
We back the relentless, the risk takers, the ones who keep the pedal down and build brands that they were meant to stay in motion.
Okay, see, I thought I'd heard of it before. It sounded vaguely familiar. It did sound vaguely familiar. So Drop Light is the corporate sponsor here at Grand Park, and this, the final year of Grand Park. And practice number 2 underway today. And so the Colts set today for day number 2. I'm just going to throw Steve Campbell on the air here because Steve is a fellow Panther, but he is also the Grand Poobah. Now, you are with the Colts, and I'm going to guess your title, Steve. You ready? I'm going to guess that Steve Campbell, the former deputy mayor of Indianapolis, as well as the 1988 student council president of North Central High School, which is at the top of his resume. I'm going to guess that your title is Vice President of Corporate Communications.
Pretty close. Vice President of Communications and External Affairs. So pretty close. I mean, it's all about the same thing.
Now, external affairs meaning affairs that take place outside the building. Is
Correct.
that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
There are some NFL teams where external affairs is a dangerous title, perhaps, right?
That's exactly right. But
Okay.
But your North Central education is showing.
Thank you very much. Let's get to this just in terms of here we are on day 2 of the camp. And, you know, it is amazing yesterday, and I made the point of the fact that things are just different in the NFL now, and I get the fact that you're ramping up, right? So this seems to be obviously an extremely fan-friendly camp out here at Grand Park. But from your standpoint and just from a franchise standpoint, aside from the X's and O's of football, what's the overall goal here at Westfield in terms of outreach and, for that matter, external affairs?
Yeah, you know, the Colts have been one of the few teams left in the NFL that has their training camp out somewhere else. And that's been beneficial for us. You know, obviously we're moving camp back to the training facility next year, but this has been just an opportunity to get out with fans. You know, for them to see the team before we take the field. A lot of fans aren't able to come to games for whatever reason, and you know, this is an opportunity for them to see the team up close. And you know, this is you know, the NFL is all about events, right? We're all about tentpole events. You got the draft, you've got the combine, you've got all these different big events throughout the NFL season, and this is one of ours. You know, this is one of our tentpole events. So we're sad to be leaving Grand Park, but we're hoping to have one more, you know, kind of one last great camp up here with all the fans.
What's the I guess motivation I'll use for lack of a better term, but what would be the reasoning for leaving this venue and going back into the complex?
Yeah, like I said, you know, we're you know, I think of the 32 teams, they're probably you know, there are probably only about 6 or 7 teams that still go off campus somewhere. Most teams have brought it in. A lot of it is operational, and certainly there's a little bit of financial to it. I mean, this is a huge undertaking. I mean, we literally move our entire building pretty much up here every summer, and that's a huge undertaking. It takes time, that our players and our staff could be doing other things, and it's a huge operation. Now, granted, we love the interaction with the fans, but when it comes down to it, next year we're going to try to incorporate as much as we can. We probably can't have as many fans as we have here, but we're going to incorporate some fan moments into that as well.
It's hard to believe, Steve. Steve Campbell is my guest here from the Colts. Can we see who's calling? Is it? Oh, wait, that's a walkie-talkie?
That's a walkie-talkie.
Do you need to take that?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
The reality is that this has been now, and I'm trying to think of the exact date, but in terms of the loss of Jim Irsay, and I will admit, Steve, that I have been always, I'll say, concerned about how that was going to happen in terms of the transfer, not of ownership, but of power, the way that's distributed, all of it, right? It seems as though the family and the organization have made it through those uncharted waters, and that now, and I hate to say you move forward because I don't mean that to disrespect Jim Irsay, but you know what I mean, right? How difficult has both emotionally and logistically that transition and that last year been?
I'd say probably the hardest part was the emotional part, because logistically and operationally, again, this is no disrespect to Jim, but the organization moved along there was a seamless transition. And I think a lot of that's because Jim over the years has, I think everyone has seen this across the city and across the market, is that the 3 daughters have been involved in the team in many, many ways over the last 10 to 20 years. And so they were more than ready to step up to the challenge. And so behind the scenes, the emotional part, I'd say, was the hardest part, because everything else operationally kind of didn't miss a beat. And that's a tribute to Jim's planning, and that's a tribute to his daughters being ready for the moment.
In terms of that being ready for the moment, and that appears to be the case, right? And I don't know how to ask this delicately, but my feeling has always been, Steve Campbell, that for the last year there was so much of that operational transition that had to take place that now you have the opportunity for ownership to focus more on the X's and O's of the football result of it than a year ago, and therefore it makes it interesting this year because the spotlight would be even brighter.
I think that's partially right. I mean, Carly, I think as fans can tell, Carly is obsessed with the football side. So even though we were going through the transition on the operational side and the ownership side and all those type of things, Carly never really lost her focus on the field. I mean, it's tough. You lose a parent,
Of course.
And then you have, on top of that, this entire corporate transition. I mean, that's something I've never experienced and probably never will personally. But Carly never lost her, her obsession on the football side. So I don't think that – I think she was locked in last year. But certainly you are correct. With that, all of that out of the way, there's nothing left but X's and O's, right?
Could the Colts and how much at this point of a concerted effort, I guess, is there for Indianapolis to be the host city of the draft?
Oh yeah, we really want that. We want the draft,
and that would be within how?
We don't have a year yet because the league has awarded some of them out already, and so we don't have an exact year yet. But I'd say probably within the next 5 to 6 years.
And you realize when that happens that I will completely mock the announced attendance numbers the entire time, right? Right?
To be honest, I don't know how the NFL tabulates those numbers.
Okay, so you agree with me? It seems a little odd, right? We'll just simply say it that way.
I have no information about how the NFL
where
uses
would
those numbers.
Where would you do it? What are the different venues that would be possible?
There are a lot of different options. I mean, that's the great thing about Indianapolis, as everyone knows, as all your listeners know. Indianapolis was designed for this. 50, 60 years ago, we designed our city to host events just like this. So there are a lot of natural places. So some places that I've heard, American Legion Mall is great because we already have a lot of events there. Some people have suggested the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Some people have said Military Park. Some people have said, somewhere around White River State Park. So we've got a lot of venues, I think, that would fit the bill.
before I let you go, because I know they're practicing and you have stuff to do, I do want to get to this. You were obviously working within civically the government of Indianapolis and I'm going to guess here, okay? You worked for the governor as well, but you were involved in state and city politics from like 88 to 08, somewhere in there?
That's exactly right.
Am I correct there?
You're exactly right, to believe it or not.
Are you going to send me a restraining order because I know this information?
Not at all. We've known each other too long.
But with that, what did you notice or observe? And I know that we've always known it from the periphery, okay, externally, if you will. But how much was sport and relation to sport from a commerce standpoint prioritized both by the state and the city during that time?
Oh, yeah. That's, I can't, the times that I worked in state government and local government, I can't take credit for it. I mean, I give all the credit to people like Dick Lugar, when he was mayor of Indianapolis way back when. They're the ones who kind of started this sports strategy, this sports economic development strategy. And I tell you what, I mean, it's paid off for Indianapolis. Other cities are now getting in the game and catching up. But we did this 40, 50. I mean, you were around for the Pan Am Games in 1987. You and I are both old Indianapolis guys. And so, that started that really, and the National Sports Festival, remember that one?
Yeah, 82, of course.
And so all that started this trend toward using sports.
Was it by design initially, Steve, or do you think that Jim Morris and Dick Lugar, do you think that they put on those events and then said, wait a minute, we might have something here?
I think it was a little bit of everything. And the thing I always find most funny about Indianapolis is that when we started calling ourselves the amateur sports capital of the world back in the late 70s and 80s, we weren't.
Right.
We talked it into existence. And I think the leaders that we had in the city and all the mayors and governors we've had since then have taken that to heart, and it works. I mean, we see the millions of people and the millions of dollars that come in every time we host an event, and I think that's unique to Indianapolis and Indiana. And I talk to students all around the country about wanting to break into sports, and they'll call me up on the phone and we'll Zoom and we'll talk, and I always say, hey, in Indianapolis, if you're from Indianapolis, you've got lots of opportunities to break into sports because we have so much going on here, different in other cities, but that's a feather in our cap.
The other thing that's funny is we were the amateur sports capital of the world literally for like 2 years, because as soon as we adopted that moniker and brought U.S. track and field and swimming and those things here, then boom, the Colts had already moved here but became established. The Pacers started to break through, and all of a sudden we went, maybe we're more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Maybe we're a big league sports town as well. And so sports kind of allowed us to have a bigger presence than probably realistic. That's basically been my entire life.
No,
right?
That's exactly right. I mean, my entire lifetime in Indianapolis has revolved around sports in some way, and it's been good for our economy. It's been good for for the city and notoriety. Getting with our name being blasted around the planet. We just had the NFL Flag Championships here last week, and that was broadcast on ESPN all around the world. And so, the more of that, the better.
So draft within 5 years, we'll say?
I hope so. I think that's the target goal. We'll talk to the folks at Visit Indy and the Sports Corp, and we feel pretty good about it because to this day, I mean, it gets old talking about it, but the Super Bowl we hosted in 2012
was that one and done?
I hope not. I hope not. I mean, we proved that we could do it better than anybody else, and so I think we'd have to work at it a little bit. But I'd love to see it come back. But I think right now the draft is top on our list.
Well, we'll let you get to work. I appreciate you jumping in.
Man, anytime.
I basically lassoed you as you walked past.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime.
Steve Campbell, again, Vice President, Communications and External Affairs.
You got it.
Man, that's a long business card.
That's
a billboard on a business card.
It's a little bit too long.
Nobody carries business cards anymore, though, so that's cool. It's a long LinkedIn. How's that? All right, Steve Campbell joining us again. Practice number 2 underway here. We are at Drop Light Grand Park up in Westfield. They will be on the field until about 11. At that time, Justin Wally will come over and join us. Stephen Holder will join us later on in the program as well. But let's get to day number 1 and just kind of the absorption, if you will, in sitting back and kind of reflecting on yesterday. I did have several people ask me yesterday, and understandably so, hey, how did Daniel Jones look? How did Anthony Richardson look? And the reality is that, you're watching pretty basic walkthroughs. And, I thought a really good question, I heard Kevin mention it earlier this morning, was if you didn't know, would you be able to tell that you were watching a quarterback coming back off of that injury? Which is a really good question. And I realistically think the best answer for that at this point, I mean, one practice in, now getting ready for practice number 2, is from a movement standpoint, you cannot tell. Now, you cannot tell from a movement standpoint partially and largely because of the fact that they're not really doing a lot of movement just yet. There are no pads on. Everybody out here is wearing basically gym shorts, a jersey, and a helmet. And so there's no pads, there's no contact. You are running simulations of plays, but you're not putting the pressure on the quarterback. You're not, I mean, yes, is he forced to roll out? Of course. Is it even 40% the speed, the pressure, the tenacity that he's going to face in week 1 against Houston? I don't know who they're opening against Houston in week 1 or against who do they? Baltimore. I knew that. No, obviously not. But you cannot visibly see any sort of, and I'm looking right now at the quarterbacks that are throwing. I'm watching Anthony Richardson throw. He throws a ball that is right where it needs to be, right? That is totally different than seeing somebody, and just as I say that, Anthony Richardson just threw pass number 2 over the guy he's throwing to, sailed it over him. So, do you read into that too much, though? I think that's unfair. But that's point number 1, is that at this point, everybody looks good in that regard, but take that with a grain of salt.
Jake, can I add one thing to this real quick on the Daniel Jones conversation?
Yep.
To me, I don't think you're going to notice, like the difference of a guy coming off an Achilles rupture in like the way he moves out there. To me, you're going to notice it in the way and how far he's able to drive the football down the field. Like, it's the explosion that is the bigger concern and thing to look for than anything else other than just the movement, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, and that's the thing, when we talk about, and man, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to do that because there's nothing more inconsequential than like minute-by-minute, play-by-play analysis of a quarterback on the field. But Anthony Richardson just threw another ball like 3 feet over where he needs to throw it. The very good point there, Eddie, and it kind of goes back to what we talked about with Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton, in terms of when you look at the movement, we can see video of Tyrese Halliburton doing a dunk or shooting threes, but it's the movement and the requirement and the stress put on that area of the leg once you get into the very fast-paced nature of it and the pressure and the stress that's put on the leg. And there is no practice that simulates necessarily that once you just get through that repetition. But by chance, Eddie, do you happen to have the breaking news sounder? This just in, unless you listened to this radio program and did about a week ago, guy right over here wearing a shirt that says "Why Not Indiana," which I absolutely love. That has the kind of FloJo paint scheme to it, if you will. We now know that the Pacers officially will indeed wear the pinstripes coming up this season. Now, I say that, and I guess now, and I don't know, have they released, Eddie, the rest of the uniforms that they are wearing?
I have not seen that yet, no.
Okay, because I told you recently I had seen we'll just say the preliminary announcement of which uniforms they would be wearing, and I will simply say the one that they would be wearing that they have not worn the last 2 years is the pinstripes. I believe there are 5 different uniforms. The pinstripes are amongst those that they will wear. Now, uniforms to me a funny thing because oftentimes, retro uniforms. When people talk about uniforms and they say, oh, man, the best ever were blank, and oftentimes you can tell someone's age based on their answer because you will find that people, it is nostalgic for when you first began watching sports and noticing teams and falling in love with them. Why do people love the old Houston Oilers throwbacks? Because it reminds them of when they were a kid first watching games, watching TV, whatever else. The Colts are a little bit different because for the most part they have never changed or varied their uniforms going all the way back even to Baltimore. But in the term of the Pacers, the pinstripes, to a great extent, remind people of one of two things. The great era of the teams that broke through and went to the finals, or, I hate to say it, for some people, the brawl. I mean, it does remind some people of the brawl, but I've always been kind of lukewarm on the pinstripes just because it doesn't have that same nostalgic feel for me like the Flojos or even the early Reggie Wayman Tisdale years, the mid-'80s years when they weren't very good, but I liked the kind of royal blue. Eddie, your thoughts on the pinstripes?
I always think it's nice to bring back like old school uniforms from time to time, but don't make them like a permanent thing because you don't want to ruin the nostalgia of the uniforms. And I'm interested to see how long they have these pinstripes around. That, based off the preliminary pictures, look good. Because when they did those Hickory Nights, oh goodness, those were brutal.
No, so the Hickory Nights, the Hickory uniforms I thought were cool, but like when they first announced the Hickory uniforms, I thought it was cool. But didn't they do it was it 4 seasons, Eddie? 3 or 4 seasons,
yeah,
right?
It was way too long.
Yeah, that's it. It just got to the point where it was like, okay, we've done this now for long enough. We're good, right? That's what it came down to. We're good. But back to the Colts camp from yesterday. One of the things, and I think that it is, you almost forget about it. And there's a yin and a yang. There's a good and a bad here. The reality is that when it comes to the Colts roster, the one area that, and I realize their marquee piece in this is not practicing right now, and Alec Pierce. Their second most marquee piece in Michael Pittman Jr. was obviously, moved in the offseason. Receiver is a position that, by and large, in the National Football League, the receiver position is one that I'm not going to say it's easy to replicate, but we have seen in the history of this franchise. I mean, you don't have to go back very far. Dontrell Inman and Torrance Small, and guys that are brought in kind of at the 11th hour, and you go, okay, he's done okay here. Receiver is a position that, to a great extent, you can bring a guy in, and other than learning the playbook, Jeff George once told me a great story about when Randy Moss was a rookie, and the offense was very complex. And Randy Moss, George had him. He might not have been. I think he was a rookie when he had when he had Randy Moss. But at either rate, at some point he was a teammate of Randy Moss's, and Randy Moss was new to a system itself. And he said, literally, I could look at him and go, look, you just go out on this one and hook a left and whatever. And I'm going to. Now that's simplistic, but the point being, there are only so many routes a receiver needs to run, and so once he knows what that is, you can place him into a situation where he was not around everybody else during the time of acclimation and workouts and all of that. The Colts may be in that position because one of the beauties, I guess, for the Colts at this point, the yin and the yang, if you will, is the fact that they have so many other areas, perhaps of depth. The cornerback area and the defensive backfield in general looks to be very deep. The quarterback area looks to be covered because you know that Daniel Jones, assuming he's healthy, you're covered there. And then Riley Leonard and Anthony Richardson, you have some depth at least of familiarity of what they can do. I'm not saying they're going to be great players, but you kind of know who they are and what they can do. Obviously in the backfield with Jonathan Taylor, so long as he's healthy. Tight end room, I think they have really good depth there. So we can talk about those areas and feel good about it or feel at least familiar with it. And that means that we are forgetting about or not talking about or overlooking, which is kind of the elephant, and that is who is going to be. I mean, we assume Alec Pierce is going to be healthy and 100%. We assume that Tyler Warren is going to play kind of that over the middle, almost like slot bailout, big target guy, and that, out of the tight end spot. And maybe that gives you some flexibility to mask what I'm talking about. But there is big question at the wide receiver spot because once you get past those couple of names, you start getting into a lot of interchangeability of guys that do not have a lot of repetition, do not have a lot of time here, do not have a lot of familiarity, And that's all taken care of if Pierce comes back and is healthy. And but even then, I mean, Eddie, would you agree? If Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, we know, is a really good player, and Tyler Warren, but a wide receiver, and especially if you look at the way that they were playing a year ago when they were really rolling, part of what made the Colts offense so good was it was a little bit like the Pacers offense, odd as that sounds, when they were rolling, in the fact that they could just spray it around and you kind of never knew where it was going and who it was going to. And now it feels like it is a much more restricted area, if you will, in terms of where they can move it around, at least now, until someone steps up. And I do think that's an area that if you were going to pose question about this roster, this camp right now, in what has been a storyline going into it of pretty low maintenance other than injury. It's not like you have holdouts and you have, major question marks in terms of that area of it, of people creating drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're making drama, Eddie. Would you agree, at the receiver spot of they're going to have to find, whether it be somebody that steps up to the plate, they're going to have to find at least one other option here at wide receiver.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to find another option, Jake. But I think if you just look at the trend of the NFL, like you look at Kansas City, for example, and I know I don't want to compare the Indianapolis Colts to the Kansas City Chiefs, considering all the success that the Chiefs have had. But, like, you look at what they've done and how the game has changed because of them. You know, in those early years of Patrick Mahomes' career with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, they were able just to turn out these chunk plays after chunk play, and it changed the way that teams were playing defense. There was a lot more to high safety. So it forced everyone in the Kansas City Chiefs to start running the football and operating more over the middle of the field. And now it's a more frequently used defensive alignment of that too high. And so you're seeing a lot more teams opt for throwing the ball over the middle of the field, getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands relatively quick, getting into the wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, et cetera's hands, and just tell them, hey, go make a play with the football in your hands. And to me, when I look at the way that this Colts wide receiver room is constructed, to me, that is what they're trying to do. I get they still have Alec Pierce who can win down the field, and that's what makes him so special, but he's going to have to start doing it, and he did it a little bit last year, and build on it of operating more in that intermediate over the middle part of the field. It opens up so many different things in the passing game if you can dominate the middle of the field like the Los Angeles Rams have done. That's what made the Seattle Seahawks so great last year. And so when you look at it that way, I think that is the direction that the Colts are going. But it's just a lot of unproven players after. You can even throw in unproven in terms of Josh Downs just because of the down year he had a season ago, in large part because of the arrival of Tyler Warren. But
Right.
I would like to see the Colts add another receiver into the mix, but I also want to see what they have in Ashton Dulin and some of these other guys behind Josh Downs.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, in Josh Downs, for example, how does he acclimate to, if you will, a new role? I think it's going to be a similar role, but do they start relying on that even more, and is he ready for that if, in fact, they don't have that player, whether it be, a Keenan Allen or somebody they bring in? That's one of the areas certainly to watch. We'll watch. It's hard to believe this. Hard to believe we're nearly halfway through practice number 2 here because they got underway at 10 o'clock. They'll go until a little bit after 11. Justin Wally going to join us. Also on the program later, Stephen Holder going to join us. When we come back, yes, there is good news for a local product in terms of major sports. We will get to that. And something happened last night, kind of an epiphany or an observation that I want to get to as well, and it's a different rebound, a different reset off of the night before than what Eddie had yesterday. I'll explain all of that. We come back here to Drop Light, who does sponsor Louis Foster and Rahal Letterman Landing and Racing in IndyCar. So, yes, I should have known that about Drop Light. Back to the Drop Light Grand Park and Colts practice number 2 here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Now, let me tell you one thing that happens here, and I can't even begin to describe to you how much it pleases me. We are here. I look over, and Claude is here, and he's just got a cool vibe about him. Like, he looks like one of those guys that shows up on American Idol and Simon Cowell's like, man, you just got a vibe about you, right? He's got on, like, a pair of, like, ostrich skin-looking boots and kind of a cowboy hat, just a cool-looking dude, right? And so he says to me, and I can't begin to describe to you the level of pride that this creates in me. He says to me, hey, I called you before I went to Dallas, and you gave me all the hot spots on the JFK tour. And I'm like, see, if nothing else, I can't even begin to tell you the level of accomplishment I feel that emanates from me to know that when people are traveling away and they need to go to famous or infamous crime scenes, I'm your guy, right? I mean, although that's the Kennedy thing is pretty historic and pretty fascinating. Claude would agree it's pretty fascinating when you go through and see everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Colts camp day number 2 is underway. Want to get into what happened in Seattle over the last couple of days, and again, an example of the WNBA and areas where I think there are a lot of tentacles to the web or the storyline as it relates to the WNBA that I find really interesting and complex. And we'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. But before that, Eddie, obviously yesterday when we were in here, speaking of Seattle, and tomorrow night they will be in Portland. So, again, the West Coast trip continues. But in terms of yesterday, I know that you had to catch up on some sleep. Now, are you feeling more refreshed today? Did you heed to the alarm? Cam, I think, made it here today with no problem whatsoever. I said, I understand it happens from time to time. I would like the day 2 Colts update on the Eddie Garrison fatigue factor.
Oh, I feel great. I feel rejuvenated. Got a good night of sleep.
Okay.
I was arriving on time like I hoped, and then I got to near downtown, and it was gridlocked.
Really?
Yes. The traffic.
Gen Con?
Yes. The traffic on a Colts game day is more organized than the traffic for Gen Con. Let me tell you.
Okay.
My 18-minute drive turned into an hour and 18 minutes.
Yeah, that'll. Okay, so speaking of that, and this is what I want to mention that happened last night, and I'm mentioning it only because I thought it was cool. Okay. So last night, my cousin, the one that I went to go see Oasis with over in Manchester, he called me like probably a week ago and said, hey, what are you doing on Wednesday night? That meeting last night, of course. And he said, I've got tickets to go see Britt Floyd. Now, are you familiar, Eddie, with Britt Floyd?
No.
Britt Floyd is probably the high. I mean, I'm not some big Pink Floyd guy, but Britt Floyd is probably the highest level or the most noted Pink Floyd tribute band out there. There's one out of Australia that's called Australian Floyd, and then there's Britt Floyd, which is out of Liverpool. And it's like a 15-member, multi-instrumented, very talented Pink Floyd tribute band, okay? So my cousin says, hey, I got tickets. Do you guys want to go? So I asked Shannon. She says, yeah, let's go. We'll make a night out of it. And he says, well, I got extra ones. So, if you know anybody that wants to go, you let me know. Well, John Oriovitz, Oreo as we call him, who is a noted motorsports writer and covers mostly IMSA at this point in his career, but he's written 2 different books now about auto racing. Oreo, I know, is a huge David Gilmour fan. He has seen him 20 times around the world. David Gilmour, formerly of Pink Floyd. So I called Oreo and I said, do you want to go? And he said, absolutely, let's do it. So we show up, and my cousin says, well, let's get dinner beforehand. And, okay, fine. So, and I text Oreo, hey, we're on our way in. So Shannon and I go walking in the restaurant, and my cousin says, all right, I'm sitting over here in the corner, and I assumed he's going to be with his wife. And we go, and my cousin's sitting with this guy and says, this is Darren was his name. And Darren's wearing a Pink Floyd shirt and the whole deal. Actually, he was wearing a Britt Floyd shirt. I mean, Darren was a big enough fan, he was wearing a shirt of the tribute band. So we sit down, and I assumed that Darren was a colleague or a coworker of my cousin's. And I'm like, okay, now how? And my cousin says, oh, no, we just met. What do you mean you just met? Well, Darren drove over from Missouri to come see the band. He'd never been to Indianapolis, so he lives near Jefferson City, Missouri, so 5.5-hour drive, he said. He drives over to see the band, and as he's just kind of milling around downtown, Gen Con going on, the parking and the construction and the traffic down around that area is just an absolute zoo because everything's closed off and you got to go one way this way. It's a nightmare. But during all of that, Darren's walking around. He bumps into my cousin. They start chatting. So my cousin invites him in to have dinner with us. So it's now Darren, Oreo, myself, Shannon, and Darren, and we're all sitting around. Darren's telling us about how he's seen the band in Arizona and everything else. Not really nice dude and totally into the band. He's showing highlights he has of video that he shot at the band at other places. And so we end up going into the venue, and we're sitting like in the area where we're all sitting there. And Oreo is very clearly, every song that comes up within 2 notes, Oreo's like, oh, this is from 1979, cut 3 of, they haven't played this since 1986 when they were in Wichita, that kind of thing. And so Oreo finally says to my cousin, and I'm giving my cousin some props here, but I think there's a lesson to be taken in it. He says to him, he goes, just want to thank you for inviting us out, whatever. And my cousin says, you know what? I just love live music, but more than that, I love seeing people that can appreciate and enjoy what their taste is. And so I wanted to make sure that I was with people tonight, even though this band to me isn't necessarily my favorite per se. It's about the enrichment of seeing other people enjoy what it is that suits to their desire, to their need, to their passion. And I just sat back and was able to observe this observation that my cousin wanted to be able to create for other people. And I just thought it was such a lesson that can be taken in any aspect. And on this radio show, at times, we talk about a lot of things that are people's passions. The Colts are people's passions. The Pacers are people's passion. At times, we talk about the passion of my son, Eddie's passion for watermelon gummies. We all have our thing that we're into that we incorporate into the show. But one of the things I think is most important is that even when it's somebody that's from Jefferson City, Missouri, 5.5 hours away that you met 45 minutes ago because they were standing near the restaurant where you were meeting people before the concert, you can always find that common ground. You can always find that common link of and you can find it by saying, tell me about what's of interest to you. And I think sometimes on this show, and I have been guilty in the past of simply doing a broadcast based on what's of interest to me and not always being able to sit back, observe, and soak in what's of interest to you, the listener. And I think symbiotically, clearly we have to talk about, and we do talk about things that are of people's passion, and we got a pretty good idea what that is in this town. But, for example, when you look at the Fever playing in Seattle 2 nights ago, and I did not see, I was unaware when the game was going on itself, and I watched the game. I was unaware of what apparently was taking place between one of the co-owners of the Seattle Storm, and I'm assuming they have like a group of ownership. It's not just 1 or 2 people, but one of the people involved with ownership in the Seattle Storm and a couple of young fans that were there with signs in support of Sophie Cunningham, the Pacers' emerging star. She was already a star when she got here, but her stardom has really risen. And what was, to me, yesterday when the story came out that the owner of the Seattle Storm took exception to the signage and the support that these young fans were showing to Sophie Cunningham because it was in a political arena where they differed. It was under opinion of where they differed. But it was a group of young fans that were passionate about a particular topic. It was an owner that was passionate about the opposite opinion of said topic. And then Sophie Cunningham kind of is forced to become the one in the middle that is saying, but both of you are passionate. And she issued a statement to basically say exactly that. Look, I welcome fans from any walk of life and, in a very diplomatic response to it all. But I just think that we live in a world now where there are so many people that are so eager to scream from the mountaintops what it is that is their passion, and I can understand and respect that in many different arenas from many different standpoints. And for whatever reason, the WNBA, as it has escalated its profile and it has welcomed in new viewers, new eyeballs, and everything else, and you can say a big part of that is Caitlin Clark. You can say a big part of that perhaps is just the growth of women's basketball in general, and the fact that you now have young women who have seen a professional league their entire life, as opposed to 20 years ago, women that didn't have that level to aspire towards, and so therefore the quality of play was not as competitive at a younger age. The travel series, all of it has built itself towards this league now very quickly emerging as a primary league within professional sports in the United States. And for whatever reason, people from multiple areas have decided that the WNBA is going to be their bullet point, the thing that their poster board they're going to point towards to make their point about, more often than not, a social or political commentary that is their passion. And the WNBA, while that puts them in a difficult position, especially when, as I talk about with Caitlin Clark, all of that noise of people oftentimes that are making counterpoints to one another, and both of them are using Caitlin Clark as the illustration to make the point for them. And I'm like, Caitlin Clark's not asking for that per se, and the WNBA to a great extent is not asking for that. But the problem becomes when all of a sudden then you have, and Eddie, I think this is another example of, and I know that you have a passion about the WNBA because you work as the producer for the Fever radio broadcast, and we have Stephanie White on the program and different players, and Caitlin Clark's here, and Aaliyah Boston, and there are great players playing here in Indiana. But it feels as though from a PR standpoint, the WNBA, in terms of organizationally, has yet to basically figure out, and I'm not saying that it's an easy solution or an easy answer, but it appears as though with each and every opportunity that they have to bridge together or to welcome together different passions and allowing people to feel like they're a part of something, they have in fact taken like the wrong course of action from an organizational or leadership standpoint to draw lines in the sand and only perpetuate the polarization of it all, as opposed to figuring out, as Sophie Cunningham did, how to sit back and observe it and say, I just want to allow both of you to exhibit your passions. I just want to sit in the restaurant and see two different people that don't know one another at all come to the common ground of the fact they have a passion for this band. And the WNBA seemingly, and I think that we're more, we have a greater sensitivity to it now, perhaps in Indianapolis, because Caitlin Clark is such the face of it. It just feels like as this league has grown and its profile has grown, they have yet to figure out how to balance it. And each time that they are put in these positions, Eddie, they seemingly, from an ownership or a commissioner standpoint, choose the wrong answer on the multiple choice. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Jake. It makes sense to me. It's just like the thing that frustrates me the most is like there is just so much, and not just with the Indiana Fever, but a lot of it is surrounding them, just the polarization and the things that narratives that people try to push about certain players and about the team and about its fans. Like, if you live around, Indiana and specifically within Indianapolis, I don't think these people that live here that are fellow Hoosiers are the ones that are causing all the uproar and all the things on social media. It's the fans that are just, I don't know what it is that they're trying to push a narrative, as Stephanie White has said, that they're using Caitlin Clark's name for attention and using it in ways in which that, Caitlin has outwardly said that she does not condone, and that she wants to keep things about what's going on in the court, and that's why she hasn't really directly addressed everything, because at the end of the day, this is basketball, and we should be talking about basketball and the growth of the WNBA. Instead, Jake, we're sitting here and we're talking about a co-owner who berated fans who were just sitting there at a game trying to watch a basketball game on a Monday night. I think it was Monday night between the Seattle Storm and the Indiana Fever. Like, can we just keep it about that?
I understand that, but to be fair, Eddie, the fans were, as I understand it, were holding signs professing their opinion about something that is beyond basketball. Right?
I agree.
Getting into the discussion of, and this is what I mean. When you start getting into the discussion of one athlete talking about trans athletes within sport and men playing in women's sports, I understand the sensitivity of that topic. I understand the heat of that topic. I understand the polarization of that topic. And yes, there is a time where I would have absolutely dove in and said, this is exactly how I feel about this. And then I realized that sometimes it's better to sit back and let people voice their passion about it instead of trying to berate them or beat them over the head with my own passion in that regard, of my own opinion. Because when it comes to this radio program and sports talk in general, it is my belief, maybe I'm wrong, that people want sport and they want to be around sports and they want to consume sports to get away from those things. And they want to come to this radio station and they want to come to talk radio to get away from those discussions as opposed to being immersed in it. And yesterday, or 2 nights ago, I should say, what happened was somebody with ownership stake within a franchise only perpetuated and fueled that debate as opposed to allowing someone in sport, with a fan using a sport platform to say, we're here and we agree with you, and simply leave it at that and say, okay, your opinion, I appreciate it, and move along. When you try to counter it back, it only creates a bigger quagmire. Believe it or not, within 10 minutes now, 10 to 15, somewhere in there, of the conclusion here of practice number 2, Justin Wally going to join us just about 40 minutes from now. Stephen Holder as well. We get you caught up on everything that's been taking place here. They've now moved to kind of the other end of the field, so I'm not seeing as much as to what's going on in practice, but we'll let you know what does take place today of note. We'll do it on the other side here. It is Corey & Company coming to you from Colts Camp Day number 2, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. I know you told me which
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Eddie, do we happen to have the breaking news sounder by chance? This just in, Mackenzie, who is an intern at Wish TV and as well WRTV and attends Miami of Florida. She's a hurricane. Just actually guessed that I'm 60 years old. She said, I said, you want to guess how old I'll be? And she said 60. She goes, you're 60 years old. So, I mean, that's cool, right? And as soon as practice is over with here, they're going to bring me over some Metamucil. That'll be cool. And, 60. I mean, come on, man. Like, I realize, but 60? Now, also somebody else guessed that they said, you're not even 50 yet, are you? I said, okay, I feel a little bit better now. 60, though, Eddie. I showed them a picture of you, Eddie, and they think you're 46.
Oh, thanks.
So what do you make of that?
Thank you. I know that's
what I mean?
I know that's false.
I mean, 60. I don't look 60, do I? I'm not. For those of you that are listening to the program that are 60 years old, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that you're old. I mean, I'm very close to that myself. But I would like to think, Eddie, as I mentioned, I think I have a younger vibe. Do I not? Thank you. Thank you.
Who's agreeing with you? Yeah. Who's agreeing with you?
The one that guessed me at 60 is actually agreeing.
Wait, what?
So apparently,
Hold
because she
on
doesn't
here.
want to give away the stuffed animal from Kings Island, she's now trying to walk it back.
Hold on. How
She's
can you
agreeing.
say someone is 60 and then say, yeah, you're young and hip?
I totally agree.
That's a compliment sandwich right there if I've ever heard it.
I think McKenzie's walking it back a little bit is what's happening here, Eddie, right?
I think so.
If you're just joining us today on the
Agree,
program,
man.
by the way, the Pacers announced earlier they will wear their pinstripe uniforms this year, but that is one of, I believe there are 5 sets of uniforms. Have they released the other 4, Eddie, or have they only mentioned the pinstripes?
Well, I would assume that the gold or the yellow, as they call them, will be back again. The blue, white.
But have they officially announced that?
No,
Because I have a list of the 5 that they allegedly. I was given a list a couple of weeks ago of the 5 uniforms in their rotation, and the pinstripes were one of them. And that's when I said it looks like they're going to wear the pinstripes. They have officially announced the pinstripes, but have they officially confirmed the others?
No, not yet.
I can tell you what they are. I could, which ones were you speculating about?
That they would have a white pinwheel. I think it's the pinwheel. It's got the Indiana.
White.
It says Indiana Pacers in a circle, and it's got the number in the middle.
I got you. That's like the Darren Collison era, right?
Yeah.
I always think of that. And then like Oladipo, the early Oladipo ones.
Yeah.
So you're saying the pinwheel in white, okay?
Yeah. They'll have a blue.
Okay. What else are you? Okay. Which one in blue?
What do you mean? Which one in blue? It's like the navy blue, and it's just the navy blue version of the white uniform.
Oh, so you're saying the blue and white, the pinwheel in both colors?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that's correct.
That would be 3, along with the pinstripes.
Correct. There are.
I would need to see. They'll have a city edition. Fascinated to see what that looks like, because I believe the pinstripe or the statement edition. And then don't they typically have a? Now is the NBA Cup? Emirates NBA Cup, is that a city edition, or is that a cup jersey?
I have no. Eddie, I'm 60. How would I know that?
That's great.
Right?
That's great point.
I think they had like a kind of a FloJo hybrid. I would imagine that could be in the mix, and then also one of those older, like when Paul George was here, they first came back with kind of a retro of the ABA look, the Roger Brown look that may or may not be.
Oh, they had those
in the mix
this year, didn't they?
I think that's right. That, like I said, each thing they'll be wearing will be something that you have seen before for the most part. Practice about to conclude here. It's hard to believe that in day number 2, practice number 2 for the Colts. But once it does, Justin Wally will be joining us. He'll do so here in the next hour. Stephen Holder as well, as we roll along from Droplight Grand Park up in Westfield. It's Query & Company, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Hey there, Jake Query for Game Day Men's Health. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the website. Theme of the day, right? Feeling your younger self, guys. Game Day Men's Health is here to do exactly that. Whether it is testosterone replacement therapy, just help out with that. You get that feeling of the day where like, man, I need a nap, or for whatever reason, I notice my metabolism has just slowed down. Those things can be helped out with testosterone therapy, and then peptide therapies, huge as well. I absolutely have noticed that with workouts and just less sore afterwards. Whatever it is to get back in the game, Game Day Men's Health is here for you. Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood, as well as the north side of Indianapolis on North Shadeland. So multiple locations, and great in terms of going in. You're in there in and out in 30 minutes, an hour or so, relaxed atmosphere. They are fabulous people. Scott up in the Fishers and Carmel location, just the best. Again, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Go on the website for a free consultation to find out what it is they have for you to get you back in the game with a game plan designed for you. That is GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I'm going to assume that practice has concluded because everybody is starting to work their way here towards the northwest end of the practice fields at the Droplight Grand Park in Westfield. And, man, it's like a flash of an eye, and all of a sudden they're done. That means that media availability will be taking place in the tent just behind where I currently sit. I can see Shane Steichen walking over, and one of the things that I would assume will be discussed is simply the continuation of the analysis of how Daniel Jones looks, how Anthony Richardson looks, even though the Richardson story is a little bit passé at this point. But I did see him. I hate to belabor the point, but I thought Richardson today looked pretty inaccurate from what I saw, but I only saw a few throws, so who am I to judge? I did hear the guys talking this morning, and I totally agree with it. One of the real, I think, sticking points or challenges for this team right now is, and we'll see. Maybe, again, the Colts would know better, at least one would hope, than we in terms of the depth of, maybe there is somebody at the wide receiver spot within their room currently that they think has a chance to emerge and develop, and then you say, hey, you know what, we didn't know that we had the depth at this spot. We've seen that in the past with the running back position, for example, where, and running back, though, is a little bit more fungible. How many times have we seen it where the Colts are going into a situation and they go into a game late in the year, a Thursday night game in Carolina or San Francisco or something like that, and then, a Jonathan Williams comes in and has back-to-back 100-yard games. We have seen that at the running back spot. But in terms of at the receiver spot, that's just a different scenario. We have seen guys that they have been able to get as veterans to come in and fill in. Dontrell Inman, I mentioned earlier, is one of those that comes to mind. But this, one would assume, is a receiver room. Maybe they know that player exists. Maybe they know that there is that guy that they're like, you know what, I mentioned Anthony Gould. He's been a special teams guy. Maybe Chris Ballard looks at it and says, people can tell me all they want that Anthony Gould is, not ready to take that step. But I've seen it. I believe in it. There are others within the room where they're going to need – they need someone is the point. And is it Keenan Allen? A Deebo Samuel. I don't think Deebo Samuel. He hasn't been signed yet, has he, Eddie? Deebo Samuel?
No, he has not. He's been linked to the Raiders, though. That's the only thing we've seen on that front.
And Keenan Allen, again, we do this a lot, right? Keenan Allen is one that you look at and you say, okay, he would make sense because he has history with Shane Steichen, but what does that mean in terms of today? With Pierce not, and it's not just an Alec Pierce isn't available situation. It's more so. Even if hail our Panthers, we have a Panther that comes over to say hello. North Central class of '79. You forget that Alec Pierce, when he is back out there, is still not playing in front of him, so to speak, if he's going on, let's say, a deep out. A Michael Pittman that is that big, durable target that can kind of soften up a defense a little bit. Now, Tyler Warren can be that guy. And Tyler Warren a year ago, to a great extent, at times, was that guy. But again, Warren, how much did he benefit off the fact that right there also in the middle you had to be aware of that big physical receiver? Pittman is a guy that was a really good player here. I think that whenever you draft a wide receiver, especially out of a USC, especially when you draft one inside of the first 3 rounds, there's the expectation that means automatically they are a quote-unquote like franchise receiver, that they are the big, glamorous, big number guy receiver. And maybe Pittman was never necessarily the perennial Pro Bowl guy. But I think that he doesn't get enough credit for playing through injury, being pretty darn tough and pretty darn durable. But again, I think any quarterback also just kind of needs that bail-out guy, as I call it, the guy that when a play's breaking down, you bail it out to him. And they're going to need to find somebody there that develops. The other aspect, and I'll use the word ramification if that's the right one, of a lack of receiver room, I think the corners are really good. And, Charvarius Ward is one that, there are guys that fight through injury, fight through football psychology, get themselves ready and in position. And you have now between Ward on one side, who's been through those things, and then you also have on the other side Sauce Gardner, and we know about the expectation, the investment, the pizzazz, the brand of Sauce Gardner on the other side at the corner for the Colts. So you have 2 corners there that can be almost shutdown level corners. I think you have some youth, but at the same time some optimistic youth in terms of the safety. Hunter Wohler is a guy that they absolutely loved a year ago before he got hurt. Your nickel and Justin Wally is a guy they absolutely loved before he got hurt. Cam Bynum is there. So you have, I think, a lot of depth and talent in the defensive backfield. But even the very best of players need to go back to a Chuck Pagano line, the iron sharpens iron thought process. Even the best of players need to be going and getting competition every day in practice. And yes, we haven't gotten into necessarily yet the putting on the pads, going out, running it through simulated game situation type drills. We're not at that point yet in camp. We're obviously only 2 practices and 2 hours into it. But we're not yet at that point where guys start saying the things like, we're just excited to hit somebody else. We're not at that point yet. But when you get there, the thing that makes your team better is when you know that they are going up every single day and competing against and lining up against guys that replicate and simulate what they are going to see in terms of Sunday activity in the National Football League. And if you have a depleted receiver room, if you have a receiver room that right now has Pierce still on the shelf, that has Pittman in Pittsburgh, that has Tyler Warren still coming out just in terms of tight end sets a two tight end set, so to speak, and Josh Downs floating around, and then other guys that are trying to just prove themselves, is that denying your corners the opportunity to, again, iron sharpens iron, or even more so on the other side of that, if you have lockdown corners, even though that's good and that helps develop young receivers, is that denying you over the course of practice a true measuring stick of who actually can develop and show themselves, and are you not getting the opportunity to see that? All of that to say, I would be stunned if between now and week 1 against Baltimore, I would be stunned if there is not the acquisition somewhere of a receiver in some way, shape, or form. It feels as though that absolutely is a certainty. But Justin Wally is going to join us coming up probably about 20 minutes or so from now. And we'll talk about that. Eddie, I don't know if you've been to San Diego, Eddie. You have or have not been to San Diego?
I have been to San Diego.
Let me tell you something. This weather today, it's like 70. I'm going to guess if you pull it up on your phone, I'm going to guess right now that it is 76 degrees is my guess. 76 degrees, 77 degrees. I'm up by a degree. See?
No, it's 76 where I'm sitting.
76 where you're sitting. Thank you very much. So there, okay, 76 degrees. I'm going to say the humidity. Right now. Sometimes it can get it's getting thicker than it was this morning, but I'm still going to say the humidity right now is somewhere around 52% humidity. Eddie, does your phone happen to show the humidity level by chance?
Yes, it does. You're not close.
Am I low?
You're low, yes.
68% humidity.
Now you're too high.
60% humidity.
Bingo.
Okay, that's not bad. And it was better even this morning. This is what it's like in San Diego 363 days a year. I mean, and you wonder why would the NFL leave that? Why would you leave that? It's absolutely perfect outside. It is perfect. But I am, again, I think so much of what takes place out here is away from that sunshine, that heat, and so much of it is just the overall learning of the getting in the room, looking at film, getting to know one another, and those sorts of things. And so all of that becomes, a pretty critical piece of what the Colts are planning to do here. And again, I look at the fact that when you overall, I think Charvarius Ward has just come over, but I think he's that side, right? Which one? Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Mooney Ward has joined us here. Practice number 2. I'm going to get into your timing is perfect, by the way. Your timing is perfect.
Yes, sir.
And the reason your time's perfect is because I was just discussing this, and I want your thought on it. Let me tell you the outside, like the armchair quarterback observation here, and then you can tell me how wrong it is, okay?
All right.
Or right, yeah, that's right. I like your optimism.
Always positive.
Whenever I look at, when you have receivers that are trying to – the reality is Michael Pittman Jr. is gone. Alec Pierce is on the shelf. You have guys at the receiver position that are trying to prove their spot here, right? Does that for you guys as a defensive backfield, as you are, and we're not necessarily into the spot here yet of like pads, contact, that sort of thing, but do you guys, does it benefit you to get the receivers that are going to be starting and producing for this team on Sundays, if there's one of them, let's say, that is not yet still in camp, if there's a late acquisition, does that limit back what you guys are able to learn in time if you're going against guys that are still trying to learn their way through the NFL?
Right. No, I don't think it limits us.
Does that make sense, though?
Yeah, it makes sense. If anything, I think it presents an opportunity for us because we learning from a different skill set. You know what I'm saying? We know what Alec Pierce can do. He's a deep threat guy, fast, quick. And Michael Pittman was a good, big physical receiver. So now we got kind of a lot of smaller, quicker, faster guys. You know what I'm saying? So we kind of test us to like strain a little bit more because we know these guys can come out here and run. They smaller, quicker sometimes, so we got to get our hands on and move our feet more. So I look at it as an opportunity for us and them as well to show what they got, and we can learn from like a different skill set, you know. So I think it's a positive on both sides.
Speaking of learning different skill sets, obviously now you're in year 2 of a new system altogether.
Year
right?
9 in the league has been a long time.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
and so, but I'm saying, like, when you get a new D coordinator, right, and that sort of a thing, how long does it take? I mean, when you're switching up different cadences, different looks, all of it.
Yeah, for me personally, it kind of took me a while, you know what I'm saying, to like come in and like feel like I was a coach. You know, I was hurt a lot last year, so I really kind of still like I'm earning the respect of the Colts fan base. You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't able to come out and produce like I wanted to last year. But as far as your defensive coordinator question, I think Lou a great guy. He's a great communicator, great teacher. He's teaching everybody defense. So I think I got a pretty good feel on it now. And this year, man, as long as you come out and stay healthy, I think we can ball.
You know, you talk about the respect level. Mm-hmm. And I think what a lot of people respect, Mooney, let's be honest, is the fact that you were hurt.
Right.
And you were honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional, as a professional athlete, I don't mean physically.
Right.
Emotionally speaking, how difficult is injury to deal with and come back from?
Yeah, last year I think I was hurt, obviously physically, but I think I was hurt mentally and emotionally a little bit more because I had a brain injury.
Right.
You know, so it affected my emotions. Like when I got knocked out against the pregame against the Cardinals, like I woke up on the training room table and I was just crying, like I was boo-hooing, like. And I didn't know what happened. I had to ask everybody, like, what happened, what was going on. So it kind of, like, put me down. Like, I was damn near semi-depressed. And I don't want, like, every time I talk to be another sad story. But I definitely was going through it mentally because it brought up a lot of trauma. You know, it was a real bad brain injury. So, man, I was going through it. I was questioning, like, did I
What trauma, if you don't mind me asking? Trauma just from past injuries?
Past experiences. Like, I woke up, like, I was crying, and I was saying, like, I want my baby. My baby, which was my daughter, and my daughter obviously passed away. So that's what I mean, like, trauma. Like, the brain injury just triggered a lot of emotional stuff that happened to me in the past. So, it took me a while to get over it, man. And man, for every day for, like, 30 days after that concussion, every time I stood up, I got dizzy. Like, I stood up, I get dizzy. If I turn too fast, I get dizzy. My eyes start crossing up. So it was hard to play. You know, even it was just hard to live. Like, I couldn't drive. I couldn't listen to music or anything like that. So it was pretty tough. But, man, I got over it. Like I said, this offseason, I did a lot of thinking about if I wanted to play again. And I still enjoy the game. And I still think I got a lot to give to the game. I got a lot of talent left, a lot of skill set left to give to the game, to the team, to the organization that believed in me. And I think I'm going to come out this year praying I stay healthy and get back to being Mooney.
Did you ever get to the point, Charvarius Ward, where you had decided that you were done and then you had to talk yourself back into it?
Yeah, I was very close to that point. I didn't only think, like, my career was over. I kind of damn near felt like everything was over. Like, I was in a real dark place. Like, I didn't say I feel like my life was damn was over, bro, because it felt like everything was dark, like a dark cloud over my head. I didn't have any hope of optimism for a long time. But obviously, man, I bounced back. I'm smiling now. I'm happy now. I'm in a good mood. It's good vibes right now. So, yeah, man, I'm ready.
Here's what I want to get to on that. And I know you're a football player, and we want to talk football, and it's day 2 of camp and everything else. But your story is one of a resilience, and it's a resilience partially just based from within you, right?
Yep.
There are people listening right now that might be an accountant, they might be a math teacher. They're not a professional athlete,
right?
But they also feel that same cloud, that same darkness. What do you say to them?
For me personally, I just speak from personal experience. I had to realize, like, that life is just bigger than, like, completion or incompletion, a touchdown or interception. Like, I had to realize that life is bigger than football. So my purpose doesn't rely on my job or what I do. You know, my purpose relies on the people that I love, you know, great relationships, like having great experiences, bringing love to people and joy. That's what I feel like my purpose was. So me, I'm thinking to myself, like, how can I, you know, make my son smile? How can I make my fiance happy? You know, how can I make my mom happy? Like, how can I make them feel love and bring joy to them? So that kind of, like, I had to, like, find my purpose in life. And now I think my purpose is to, like, just loving, bringing love, giving love, and being love, and just, you know, trying to bring out the best in everybody around me.
And I think, you know, let's be honest here. Also, your daughter. What can you do to make your daughter happy? I mean, I know that in a physical sense, you lost her, but yet you have to still be driven by that.
Yeah, some days I wake up and still have some doubts about, you know, if I want to get up and go out there and practice, I might not have a lot of energy. But I say if I feel mentally, you know, physically and emotionally, like, I'm gonna go out there and make my daughter smile while she in heaven. You know, so that kind of be my motivation sometimes. Like, I'm doing it for her money, or I'm doing it for Mooney Jr. I'm doing it for my kids. So that's just bringing them smiles, bringing them happiness, bringing them joy. So she kind of my motivation. Now, for a while, it was hard to, like, have her as my motivation because every time I thought about it, it was painful. Like, it was tears. I was crying. So I couldn't have her as my motivation for a long time because, I mean, it hurt. You know, even when I saw, like, anybody baby girl, like, I get emotional, like, dang, like, I miss my baby. But now I'm thinking, like, you know, I accepted it. I know that I couldn't control what happened to her. Nobody could control what happened to her. So I just, you know, look like I can't control everything. So just be happy.
And you were obviously, and it's appreciated, I think, by a lot of people, pretty transparent about the emotional journey that you went through, right? And then obviously with the injuries. What about now, just in terms of, aside from that emotion, but from a physical standpoint, how do you not become shy of contact?
Man, like I said, bro, I just got to keep faith and just be positive and be optimistic. I can't go out there and think about what if I get another concussion. You know, I just cross that bridge when I get there. I got to tackle the right way. I got to take on blocks the right way. I switched helmets. I got a new helmet now that's better for concussions. So, honestly, the concussions, that's not on my head anymore. Like, I just look at it like it's out of my control. Like, I can't control if I'm going to get a concussion or not. I can go out there and play perfect and still end up with a concussion, and I can't be mad at it because, you know, sometimes it's just by chance it happens. But, I mean, I'm just excited to go out there and just show the Colts fan base what I can do, a healthy Mooney, 100% Mooney, what I can do.
You've got a interesting mix around you of youth and experience, right?
Yep.
I mean, but yet some of them are new faces. How do you, I guess, give us the overall look of your defensive backfield and just the guys around you?
Man,
how do you scout it out?
I think we deep, man. We got a lot of good corners. I think we got at least 6, maybe 7 corners that can actually, like, start in the NFL. Like, even from J.E., you know, to Sauce, to me, Makai, Jalen Jones been a starter in the league. Like, Justin Wiley, he was on track to start last year before he tore his ACL. Man, I think we got a lot of depth, and it's going to bring out, like, the best in each one of us because we all fighting to prove ourselves every day. You
Justin
know?
Wiley being a young guy, and
he played like a veteran, though.
I know.
He played like a veteran.
And listen, you know this, Mooney. They were very, Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, they were very high on him, right? And I think we could see that. Did you have to counsel him through at any? And I know you were dealing with your own things at that time, but just the coming back from injury and having that confidence to get back. Have you seen it come back for him?
Yeah, man. I think he a naturally confident guy. Like, even as a rookie, we came in last year, he wasn't scared. He wasn't shy. He wasn't timid at all. He was out there playing fast, and, like, the way he carries himself every day, like, he carries himself like a true professional. So I think Wiley gonna be ready. Very confident, very talented, professional young man.
You're a native of Mississippi, right?
For sure, 601.
Okay,
Mississippi.
So I'm going to guess, and that's where exactly in Mississippi? What part
Southwest
of the state?
Mississippi. So we 1 hour south of Jackson, Mississippi, about 60 miles south of Jackson,
Okay, you ever
Mississippi.
been to the Kiln, Mississippi?
Nah.
That's where Brett Favre.
Oh, he's from Hattiesburg. I think he's from Hattiesburg. Well, he
Well,
stayed
he
in
played
Hattiesburg.
collegiately in Hattiesburg.
But he got a house in Hattiesburg, too, by USM. So I'm familiar with it.
So that area, I've been down in that area, right? So that's, I'm thinking, what, like about a 9-hour drive?
From where I'm from?
No, from here. From here to where you're from.
I think
10?
it's more like I don't know. I never made a drive from here to Mississippi, so I'm not
if
sure.
you had to drive from here to Mississippi in a small compact car with one Colt teammate, who would be the best person to drive with?
One teammate?
Yep.
Somebody that's gonna keep me entertained the whole time. Can I get 2 options? I'll probably say Sauce. He very entertaining. Sauce very funny, entertaining. Okay. Or Grove, bro. Grove, like a big family guy, happy guy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Very playful, very funny. So
probably pull over and cook out a little bit.
Yeah, pull over, get some good food. So either Sauce or Grove for sure.
Okay, so now I want to know the guy that would be the most annoying because they'd never shut up. Who would it be?
The most annoying because they never shut up. I'm not gonna put none of my teammates on the spot like that. I love all my teammates.
All right,
so
well, that's a good answer right
yes,
there.
Sir.
That's a good answer. What have you guys done in the last? It's a different world now. You've had these two. We only see what's on the field. Mm-hmm. What has been accomplished here so far in the first 2 days of camp?
I just think we got really good energy this year. It's better than what it last year. We was playing fast yesterday. Today was kind of like it was the average day, but I think we got a lot of energy and optimism amongst the whole defense and the entire team. That's what it feel like. Feel like everybody see like greatness ahead. That's what I feel like. I think that's what we're going to show.
How long does it take you to understand where everyone is? And by that I mean, I don't mean the way Lou Anarumo has it designed, but for you to know like with Sauce Gardner or with Justin Wally, you know when they're going to break a certain way, when they're going to retreat on a play, when you've got to step over and help out in a coverage. How long does it take to get that timing?
I think it may take the whole entire training camp. Like, we can have it down, but it's always something that we can get better at. But one thing I know for sure, for certain, I know Sauce going to always be in the right spot to cover his man. I know Wally going to be in the right spot to cover his man. I know Cam Bynum going to be in the right spot to help me out if I ever need help. Whoever started at safety, if it's Hossey or Hunter or whomever, Jonathan Owens, like, I know they're going to be in the right spot, so I can trust those guys and lean on those guys to be in the right spot, and that allow each and everybody to take more risks and make more plays.
By the way,
calculated risks at that. Calculated risks.
Are there things – when you have a major concussion, dumb question here, is it just time that you have to wait through for that? I mean, do they give? Is there medication? I mean, how do you treat that?
Yeah, it's not really any medications for the brain. It's time. Like, it's a lot of vision exercise you can do with your eyes, because your eyes part of the brain. You can work on your balance, because sometimes you get a concussion, your equilibrium get knocked off. So I worked for a long time, but I mean, mine was severe. Like, I was vomiting a lot, cross-eyed, couldn't really hear loud noises. But Mac and the training staff, like, they helped me out really, really well. So I mean, I feel like me again.
So when did you feel? I was gonna say, when was the first moment you felt like you? When's the first moment when you went through out there and you said, "Okay, I'm back"?
It was during probably during the bye week right before Kansas City. Like, it was perfect time. I think there was like 5 to 6 weeks from the concussion. So during that bye week last year, I wasn't scared to come back. Anytime before that, I would have been scared to come back, scared to go out there and play. I went out there and hit a few bags before that. I didn't get dizzy or anything like that. So I was pretty confident.
Did you talk to any teammates about?
Man, I talked to everybody. I talked to retired players, teammates. I talked to a lot of people. And even, man, I talked to some of my family members. They were telling me, like, to retire. Like, bro, they were like, bro, you made your money. You got your family, bro. You got to walk away from the game healthy. But I didn't look at it as that. I made a commitment. I love the game. You know what I'm saying? I love the game. And like I said, I still think I thought I had a lot to give. So I came back and took a chance.
How much more do you have to give? How many more years?
How much more? I know for sure I want to fulfill this contract that I signed with the Colts. So this season and next season. And I feel like I got to just take it, day by day, though. You never know. Like, now I do kind of think about, like, walking away from the game healthy. Obviously I'm not scared to go out there and get hurt, but I do want to walk away from the game healthy. So
who gave you the best advice from a player standpoint? Retired player or, just –
I think the best advice probably came from one of my former coaches. He said he was – my agent. They gave me kind of like the same message. Like, if your heart's still in it, you still feel like you can play, go ahead and finish. Like, it was a point last year when I got that concussion, like, I was thinking about, like, hanging it up. Like, I was serious about that.
I know.
I was, like, very serious and honest about that. But that was like, man, just try to finish. Just try to finish this season. After the season, we can revisit and rethink about what you want to do. And, like, after the season, it took me a while to really think, like, okay, I'm going to play again. Because I was leaning toward retirement. Like, I promise you I was. But like I said, man, my heart's still in it. I want to go out, like, on a very high note. I want to make my daughter and my family proud, and even the whole Colts organization and fan base.
Okay, day 2 of school here, basically. What's been so far the best thing, and what is the thing that you most hope to accomplish moving forward here in this camp?
The best thing, I think, like, just being in my group, amongst my group of DBs, man, everybody cheering for each other, everybody playing fast, and we got really great energy in the secondary. Like, we got our hands on a lot of balls yesterday. We got a pick yesterday. We got another interception today. So I just think we've been getting a lot of hands on the balls. And as a group going forward, I just want to continue to get better, continue to make more plays and play with a different swagger that we haven't had from the coach for a long time.
People think 7's a lucky number. Is that your lucky number, or was it randomly assigned to you?
7. My mom just got 7 kids, so I took.
What
that.
Number are you?
I'm second out of the 7, so I'm kind of like a father figure for them. Yeah.
So basically, you don't want to admit this, but her favorite's probably the 7th, right? If 7's
I feel like I was
right?
always the golden child. Because I never got in trouble growing up. I was a straight A student, so I was a mama's boy.
What was your favorite subject?
Math. I'm really good at math. But
really?
now I'm a reader. I like to read now, so probably English now.
Okay. I was an English major, so although it took me 32 years to graduate from college, but that's okay.
It's
right?
all good.
I was not a straight A student, Charvarius.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, I know you've answered it before, but where does Mooney come from?
I don't know. I really don't know. Everybody from Mississippi, the part of Mississippi I'm from, got nicknames. So I'll give you a story. We got a guy that his hustle, I don't know his government name, but his hustle was like cleaning shoes for like $5 to $10. And guess what his nickname was?
Shiny.
Shoe Shine. His nickname was Shoe Shine, so everybody kind of get a nickname.
So you were dropping your pants everywhere as a kid, and you became Mooney,
guess so.
is that it?
That's probably what it was. But I asked my mom, she was like, I don't know. So they just gave it to me ever since I was a baby.
It's kind of cool, though, right?
Yeah, it was Mooney Man growing up, though. I just took the man off, and I just go by Mooney.
You ever had moon pies?
I love moon pies.
I
love moon pies.
I do,
love
too.
Moon pies.
They're big in the South,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
You go to any gas station, RC Colas and moon pies.
Yeah,
They're all about it.
most
All right,
definitely.
Charvarius Ward, number 7, lucky number 7, even though he's kid number 2 of 7 and got a 4.0. He is
Yes, sir.
number 7 in your program, number 1 in your heart. Charvarius, appreciate it, and certainly best of luck. In all honesty, I appreciate the honesty. I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
the transparency with it.
For sure.
All
Thank
right,
you.
we wish you the
Yeah,
best.
thank you.
Mooney Ward joining us here at the conclusion of practice number 2 here for Colts camp. All right, we come back. Stephen Holder will join us on the program as well. We'll kind of go over not just that conversation and what it means, but also where the Colts are here. Day 2 is complete. The autograph seekers are here to try to talk to Charvarius Ward. Sauce Gardner here as well. We'll go over all of it, and we will do it on the other side here. It's Corey and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. Look for the can with the sunset stripe. Surfside, just 100 calories and 2 grams of sugar. Absolutely perfect this time of year with this sort of weather. Enjoy, whether it be the lemonade with a splash of vodka, iced tea with a splash of vodka, or, as I had yesterday, both of them within the same can. And with no carbonation, it is oh so smooth and easy to enjoy. Surfside, look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. Please be 21 and please consume responsibly.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Appreciate the time from Charvarius Mooney Ward. Thought Justin Wally was going to come by, and it was Mooney Ward instead, but that was outstanding. And I thought just the open nature of it all, and talking about the depths of where he was and where he is now, pretty easy to root for him, no question about it. I think if you're a Colts fan, you could take a lot of solace in knowing that he's back out there, and certainly did not take lightly the process of working through to get himself now to the point where he is back on the field. And that does have, I think, again, Justin Wally, who we'll see if Justin Wally will join us tomorrow, but I think when you look at between Justin Wally, realistically, Wally at the nickel, Sauce Gardner, and I know this, obviously, and you can look at the sheet and tell this, but Sauce Gardner has, you can tell just the athleticism speaks for itself, but his size, I mean, I think we've become somewhat accustomed to thinking of, the Colts have had over the years corners that didn't have a lot of size range, but they had athleticism range, right? Sauce Gardner has kind of the combination of the two. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that when he walks past, you're like, okay, that is a taller guy and a again, I'm going to use the term, I hate to sound like Jay Billis here, a rangy guy. You can see the length where it would be difficult to sneak a pass in, so to speak, just because of the overall wingspan and areas that he covers in that regard. But when you look at Sauce Gardner, you look at Wally, the guy that we forget about, then you got Cam Bynum, you have Halsey, who we talked to yesterday, who is not afraid of contact in moving into an area where contact may be around the corner, so to speak. Then you throw in Hunter Waller, who they were really high on a year ago. I think it has the makings to be as good a defensive backfield as the Colts have faced for some time. Now, the other aspect to that then becomes important is what happened a year ago. And what happened a year ago through the first 10 games before the injuries was Daniel Jones. I think we forget about this. This offense has the potential and I know that, Pittman's gone, right? But this offense has the potential to be where it was a year ago, literally a near record-setting, and that sounds crazy. What are you talking about, Jake? Daniel Jones? I mean, there's no Pittman there, but yes. But when you look at the way they were playing a year ago, it was at a historic pace in terms of the production they were able to come up with offensively. And there's a reason why that's significant above and beyond the obvious. The obvious would be it's significant because it means that you score points and that helps you win games. I get that. But if you go back to when the Colts had their best ever pass rush, who were the bell cow benchmark poster child, name in the Ring of Honor pass rush specialists in the history of the Indianapolis Colts? It's Robert Mathis, Dwight Freeney. And it was by design and by intention at the time that Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney were acquired. The one thing that routinely you heard Bill Polian say was, we wanted to get pass rush off the end and guys that were fast on the first step because we knew we were playing on turf and that facilitated for speed and speed kills, but also because we knew with Peyton Manning at the quarterback and Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and ultimately Edgerrin James and Dallas Clark and everybody that you had on that offense, they knew that that the other team's offense was going to be playing from behind because they were going to have the other team's defense on their heels. They were going to score a bunch of points. And they knew then that meant that teams they were facing were going to have to abandon the run and go to the air to try to keep up with the track meet that the Colts were facilitating and creating. And when you look at this defensive backfield room, we talk all the time about pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. Understandably, who's it going to be? Is Liatu Latu finally going to make the turn? Are they finally going to get, Kwity Paye just became a guy, and we were hoping that would be a pass rush guy. All of those players, that can be offset now if you have a defensive backfield and you know that teams are going to have to go to the air. What you've done now is if you can't get to that quarterback and disrupt in the pocket, you have negated and handcuffed that area because where do you throw? Where do you throw? If you've got, assuming everyone stays healthy, you've got Sauce Gardner there that's a borderline potential lockdown guy. You've got Mooney Ward, who is clearly a very smart player and has been a very good player in his career. You have the other names that I just mentioned and the depth within it. Now, all of a sudden, the pass rush itself, if in fact it doesn't facilitate itself, becomes, to an extent, negated is the wrong word, but less critical because where are you going to throw? And those are the things that I think become really important for that particular defense because, again, historically speaking, offensively speaking, you want to see that offense carry on with all hope that it does so at the level and the pace and the fury in which it was operating a year ago, which was really, really good. The other big story, and I mentioned it earlier, and I failed to get back to it because we didn't expect Charvarius to come over at that time, but how about, Eddie, you are a baseball guy, right? You've coached it, you played it, you follow it. In the time since you were around summer ball, you were coaching and helping out at Decatur Central and other such things, who is the highest rated prospect from Central Indiana that you have seen in terms of, like for me, I go back to when Brian Bullington was the number 1 overall pick in the Major League Baseball draft out of Ball State. But in terms of local high school players, what player is it that you would say had the most immediate, okay, this guy is a can't-miss big-time prospect within Major League Baseball?
That I watched with my own 2 eyes because I went up against them, or just in a general sense?
No, just in the era that you've watched it, right, in the last 10 years or so.
Okay, Max Clark would be 1, and then Nick Schnell, when he was at Roncalli, would be right there at number 2.
Okay, because Max Clark is the name we're looking for here out of Franklin Community High School, and kudos to him now. The call has been made. And whether that means that he is now permanently a Detroit Tiger and does not go back to, say, Toledo, he's still young enough, right? But there was so much prospect and belief about him. And when you are a top 10 pick in the Major League Baseball draft, in a draft that has like 152 rounds, then clearly you're a pretty gifted prospect. And he is not yet, I think he's 21 years old. And getting that call up, he, of course, hit a home run in Victory Field for the Toledo Mud Hens when they were here in front of the hometown fans. So kudos and congratulations to Max Clark, and certainly best of luck bypassing the opportunity to play at Vanderbilt, understandably so, in order to cash in. And when I mean cash in, I don't mean even the money aspect of it. I mean take advantage of the opportunity bestowed upon him for the Detroit Tigers, and now getting that call up into the major leagues. Also, the other news of the day is that of the Pacers announcing, in fact, confirming they will wear the pinstripes this year. I've never been a big, what uniform are they going to wear guy, but I know that people get super excited about that. Maybe it's because, certainly from the standpoint of the Colts, I mean, at one point, the Colts, they changed colors of their face mask. They have worn blue pants at some points, and they have the Indiana Knights uniforms, but for the most part, we know same logo, same scheme, same helmets, et cetera, year in and year out. So we don't get as caught up in the excitement and the analysis of it from the NFL standpoint. But from the Pacers standpoint, I certainly get why people get excited about it. The pinstripes, to me, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of a give and take here, because there is no doubt about the fact that there are great memories of the pinstripes. The Pacers going to the NBA Finals, and Reggie Miller, getting lifted up into the air by the Davis brothers and Austin Crosher and celebrating in the Garden and all of those things, those were in the pinstripes. Jalen Rose playing, those were in the pinstripes. But I also think of, when I think of the pinstripe jersey, and I hate to admit this, I do somewhat think of the jersey being pulled that was being worn by Ron Artest as Chuck Person is ducking his head down and they're leaving the Palace. I hate to bring up a bad memory, but the brawl was in those as well. And so I'm glad that people don't think of the pinstripes when it comes to that moment or that era, but I have to admit the fact that it does kind of jump out to me. That's one of the things that I think about with it. But nonetheless, My favorite uniforms would probably be the early year Reggie jerseys with the Wayman Tisdale era, the royal blue with the Pacers old school logo on the side. But that's because that was what they were wearing when I was of the age when I first started going to games. And so that memory, that nostalgia comes into play, and that is just a huge part of it overall. Eddie, did you say your favorites were the pinwheel? Is that right, of a couple of years ago?
No.
So what's your favorite uniform they wear?
Currently, or that they have worn?
No, that they have worn.
I'm a big FloJo guy.
Okay, it's hard to argue that. And again, they kind of have they have some of the uniforms that are like a hybrid of the FloJo, right? They have the And I never know, is it the city edition? What do they call the ones? There's the city edition, and then there's like there's a more specific of the city. Yeah, I mean, what are the in-season tournament? Do they have to wear a city edition for the in-season tournament, or is it the in-season tournament city statement state edition? You know what I mean? Like there's like 7 different variations, it would seem, right?
Yeah, so there's icon, city, statement, and then association. The association are the primary home and away jerseys. Icon's a throwback or an alternate jersey. City is a jersey with that states famous iconography. I can't even.
Excuse me?
I've never heard of this word. Iconography.
Say that again. Excuse me.
Nick Lopez, our engineers in here, laughing at me trying to pronounce a word, and I got myself into the weeds here.
Are you reading? Let's see if I can do this. Are you reading the definition off of something?
Yes, or I'm trying to.
Okay, and that's which uniform are you reading the definition of?
I'm
going to see if I can. NBA uniform city edition. Okay,
you just look up.
I'm going to
just look up Pacers uniform names, and it'll tell you.
Okay, hang on just a second. Pacer uniform names.
Yep.
And I'm looking up a word here that you are befuddled by, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Pacers uniform. I think they should. The easier way to say it, instead of all this exciting vernacular, is just tell me the marquee player that wore it at some point, and then right? You know what I mean? Like instead of some incredible terminology, just put in there like the Wayman Tisdale jersey. Okay, cool. The early Reggie jersey. All right, cool. Okay, now here we go. Which one am I reading? Statement edition, is that right?
It was City.
City Edition, a yearly rotating design celebrating local culture and franchise history, such as remixed 70s, 80s, and 90s styles featuring FloJo-inspired side blocking. So which part were you tripped up by?
You didn't get the same result that I got.
I guess not, right?
Yeah.
Are you looking at an official Pacers site?
Iconography. That was the word I was trying to pronounce. Thank you, Scotty Johnston.
Iconography?
Yes.
That's not hard.
It was just a word I hadn't read before.
I'm assuming that means iconography, I would assume, means coming up with some sort of an icon that is representative to your geographic region, right?
A jersey with Indiana State iconography, often in a different color scheme.
But here's the thing. How many iconic imagery, like, locations are there in the state of Indiana? You have the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. You have the pagoda, okay? Outside of that, what are we looking at? I mean, a hill with a barn, right? The side of Bobby Plump's backyard.
The 90s FloJo style is listed as the icon uniform from last year.
But that's not state. That's not iconographic to the state, because that would mean a graphic that is iconic to the state, showing you an iconic landmark of the state, in my opinion. It means like state landmark. Like, could they do a uniform that just has if they're doing the Indiana Pacers, should they do one that just has the dunes? Just like 5 mounds, and you're like, what is that? And like, it's the dunes. Okay, that's cool. Should they do another that is just like the Ohio River and the 2 buildings of the Evansville skyline? Okay, cool. You got to be consistent here, right? Kevin Bowen, by the way, before we get to Stephen Holder on the other side, I'm again a little worried about Kevin because he shoots very informative videos, but there are all kinds of people, like James Boyd, his colleague in the morning, is just standing here, and Kevin is standing by himself holding this video where he always looks at the wrong corner of the video.
Yep.
And I think it would behoove him to get somebody to come out and actually shoot it for him where he can just look at it and look at the right area of the video itself.
Now,
right?
here's the thing, Jake.
But
I think there's only one person there that can match him in terms of eye-to-eye level, and that's you, and you can't do that when you're hosting a radio program.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, Holder could do it, but I don't see Steven helping out. Kevin doesn't seem to be seeking the help, right?
That's true.
I mean, for what it's worth.
He needs one of those, the selfie sticks, one of those things.
Yeah, Ken Sterling's walking around with one of those, and just based on the fact that Ken has it, they look dorky. So I don't know if that's what you'd want to do. You know what I mean? Stephen Holder going to join us, ESPN. He's going to join us on the other side, and I'll see if I can do what I did with Joel Erickson and hold him through the break so that James Boyd can make fun of me tomorrow. We'll get to all of it next here. Query and Company live at Colts Camp Day number 2 on The Fan.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Practice number 2, day number 2 in the books for the Colts out here at Droplight Grand Park in Westfield. Stephen Holder of ESPN.com coming over to join us. If you're just joining us, by the way, I thought a really good conversation with Charvarius Mooney-Ward earlier. And he has been very open about his journey back from injury, but I thought he was really transparent and honest today, and it was greatly appreciated. So that will be available in podcast form. You can listen to that between 1 and 3, and then after J&B is done today at 6 o'clock. Obviously, we would ask that you listen to the radio station when we're doing live programming, but it was a really good conversation if you missed it. Joining us now, Stephen Holder of ESPN.com. Typically, I said this yesterday, Stephen, when you're on the phone, you're on the Suave Men's 2-in-1 hotline, and in this case, simply what people are seeing on the camera here is two guys, one shot, very suave, right?
Oh, see, now that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say pretty suave, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
even with my lack of, amazing hair like yourself,
I do
make
have,
it work.
if you don't mind me saying so, I do have good hair, right?
It makes you, yeah.
I never noticed, by the way, do you shave your head?
I do.
You do?
I get a haircut every day.
Is it
In the
because you had the ring going, and so then you just decided to go ahead and –
Yeah, Mother Nature did her thing, and I had to do what I did accordingly, yes.
So now I don't think this is –
Hey, by the way, she was getting me from both sides, the front and in the back.
Fair enough. Okay,
so
well,
I was like, I hate her.
My high school reunion's upcoming, my 35-year reunion, and they said that they are encouraging everybody to show up in 1991 motif, and so I want to know if I should do a mullet.
A mullet?
Yeah.
Did you have one?
I had
back in the day?
I mean, kind of. Like we all had
I'm
the
trying to envision
kind of
this.
shit. Like it wasn't. I didn't have the necessarily business in the front, party in the back. I didn't have that.
Okay.
And I didn't have the Bisquick hair where it just gets thicker and thicker as it goes along. But I did have the shaved kind of the side was tight, right?
Yeah.
And then the back was pretty long. At one point, I grew my hair out to the point where I had, like, if I wore a baseball cap, it looked pretty. I mean, it looked kind of badass, to be honest with you.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
But I kind of want to see.
But I have a theory on this. Okay. A couple of years ago, every summer I would start shaving my head. I started shaving my head because I thought if I go bald, that way people are accustomed to it. And
Wait,
they're
how
used
long
to
ago was this?
I think most recently, probably 2018 or 2019.
Why don't
I would
I
shave my head
remember this?
every summer, and I loved it. Like getting in the shower was the greatest thing ever. Right? You're
Yeah.
like, oh man, I'm done. But I have a theory, and I don't mean this, and you can tell me if you think it's offensive. I don't think it is. Tattoos,
Yeah.
and being bald are two areas where the darker your skin, the better it looks. In other words,
yeah,
and I mean even
okay.
from a tan standpoint, right? I don't mean from like an African American versus white standpoint. I'm just saying I think that if you were overly,
I
if you're
agree with
overly
that.
pale, they both look bad.
No,
right?
I think that there's something to that. I think there is something to that. I mean, the first thing you see is my bald head, right? So if it's like if it's pale, that's a lot.
But I'm trying to think. Like do you normally wear a hat? Like we go to Pacer games, or are you normally wearing a hat?
I do wear hats a lot, but I mean, I'm not wearing one now. I took it off because I was hot. But I mean, like, it works, man. It just works.
But have you ever taken the shower in the morning though, where you're like, ooh, where you get like a sunburn towards the top? I mean,
no. So you got to be mindful of the sun.
well, you're from Florida, right? So you'd be
sure.
aware of this, right?
You have to be mindful of the sun. You definitely do, because you do not want a sunburn on the top of your freaking
Brutal.
head.
It's
Yes.
brutal. Yes.
And even having darker skin, look, I don't know if the people know this, but like, I happen to be black. Breaking news. We need the breaking news alert there. But
Eddie, do you have the breaking news sound? Go ahead, Steve. Yeah.
But I would just say this: like, it's still possible. You can still get sunburned, and you don't want that on the top of your head.
It's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
That's bad.
Okay. So I'm going to keep you and hold you over. How's that? Because I do want to get to what took place today. Any observations you had? I had one, and I want you to tell me if I am. We know at times I have tendency to be jerk, but I want you to tell me if I'm knee jerk.
Okay.
Because I had one observation, but it was very early in practice. Stephen Holder, we will actually get into the brass tacks of what happened today at Colts camp, and we'll do it on the other side here when we return to Drop Light Grand Park up in Westfield, Colts Camp Day number 2, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, I'm actually curious, Stephen Holder, as a native of Miami, does this song like give you the pep of like push your chest out like yeah Miami, or is this like the nobody in Miami's playing?
It's corny.
Okay.
It's corny.
All right, fair enough.
And also Will Smith, like, what? You're from Philly. What are we doing? Like, I don't understand.
Or Bel Air, right?
Right. Well, yes.
Speaking of that, in the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, he goes from Philly to Bel Air, right?
Yes.
So
correct.
basically what we know is this. If you're a prince, you go from Philly to Bel Air, but when you're the king, you go from Bel Air to Philly.
that joke's been made already.
Has it?
But it's
Okay.
pretty good. It is pretty good. And whoever made it first was
I did not. I just maybe I did, maybe that's like the Bader Meinhof thing, and I'd seen it before, but I don't. Joel Erickson.
Also,
Joel Erickson's sprinting out of here because he got trapped yesterday. Apparently, I heard him talk.
Run, Joel, run!
He thinks I didn't hear it. I heard James Boyd say like, "Oh yeah, you were held captive," and Joel's like, "I know. Can you believe that? Like it was terrible." I believe actually what Joel said about being on this program was, "I'm all in." Isn't that what he said? I'm all in. That was a Colts slogan a couple of years ago.
Joel apparently gets paid by the hour, I guess. So that's
right.
how that works.
That's exactly right. And by the laugh, right?
I don't get overtime in my job.
Fair enough.
Sucks.
Okay, let me give you my first observation today, and I want you to tell me if it is power of suggestion or overreaction by me.
Okay.
As you can see, Stephen Holder is my guest here, and we are in basically the northwest area of this practice field. And there are only probably, in the 1 hour that the Colts were out here practicing, there were probably only 20 of those minutes where they were within sight of me. And I saw the quarterbacks, I saw each quarterback throw like maybe 10 passes. I thought in at least 4 of the 10 passes, Anthony Richardson sailed it by 3 feet over the intended target. Now, and I'm being half serious, half kidding. I did see him what looked to be – I saw a couple of, like, the guys having to jump up, and then I looked, and I'm like, oh, that was Richardson that threw that. He looked to me inconsistent, but, again, it's like 10 passes to warm things up.
Yeah.
Am I knee-jerk, or is there something to that?
Those were the individual drills. I did not see that particular period, so I can't comment on what happened today. But I would say a couple things are happening. Number one, there's a million guys out here. They're throwing to dudes they probably haven't even met in some cases, particularly right now at wide receiver. They're down a couple guys. Laquan Treadwell's with the starting offense. Like, what are we doing here? Right? So,
but right now, Stephen, let's be real, right?
No, I'm not kidding. I'm actually serious about that, right? Like, that's a conversation we can have. Like, why they haven't signed a receiver yet is unclear to me. But anyhow, there's some of that going on. And it's day 2 of camp, right? It's all that. But you should be sharp in individual drills. Now, I thought he was better in the full team drills today. He had one bad ball down the middle that almost got picked, but I thought he was better. He did have a pick, but that was not his fault. I think the ball went through Burks, the young rookie, went through his hands and got picked off, but it was a good ball. So, I put more weight on those reps, the 11 on 11 stuff, or even the 7 on 7, and that was better than what you were describing. So hopefully it's just sort of first week stuff, which can happen.
If you were out here, we'll just say, for example, that you as the beat writer for the Colts for ESPN, you are familiar with this team. Let's say that they're going to do a beat writer swap. You're going to go to Cleveland. You're going to cover that dumpster fire, and the Cleveland guy is going to come here, okay? If because Cleveland's a dumpster fire, if for some reason the beat writer that came here was somebody that didn't even follow football, and so they had no idea that the Colts had a quarterback that was coming off an Achilles, and he had to watch the first 2 days of practice, would he be able to identify that Daniel Jones is the one that is taking things gingerly?
Great question. I would say probably not. He looks pretty good. He looks really good, actually, considering. Like, he had a couple balls today that he'd probably like to have back, including an interception that was probably going to be a pick 6 in tackle football, which this is not. But I don't think so. I agree with you. And I think it's so important, too, because so much of Daniel Jones' game involves his mobility. Daniel Jones is not the Daniel Jones you saw last year if he is less mobile. It's such a part of his game that is ingrained in what he does. So I think the fact that he is moving around the way he is, I think that bodes really well for the Colts. And because that's the thing I was worried about, right? Like, I think he'll make good decisions. Like, his arm is fine. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he has decent arm strength. I was like, all right, those things are going to be fine. But if he can't move, that's going to be a significant downgrade to his performance for me. And so far, I would say I do not believe that it is evident, and that's a great thing.
As of right now, and I know he's been, quote, cleared to practice. We've seen that, right? Does that mean he's cleared to practice once they are – when I say cleared, it's one thing to say it, right?
Yeah.
If they decide tomorrow that, you know what, we're doing this unconventional – I know NFLPA, and I get all that. But for the sake of the discussion, hypothetically speaking, tomorrow on day 3, they say, pads are going on, we're going full bore.
Yeah.
Do they limit him?
If they're not restricted in hitting, for example, and every blue moon teams will do this, like Mike Tomlin was known for this in Pittsburgh. They'll have live periods, they call them, in training camp, which means you can hit, you can tackle. Not going to do it a lot, but from time to time. That would be a very interesting, I guess, decision for the Colts. And I don't know. I mean, he would still have a non-contact jersey, right, as a quarterback. So theoretically, he could do it, right? Would they have reservations? I don't know.
Is his body ready to be able to move and
right.
cut at that level yet?
I think yes, but they're going to be cautious, which is why I don't expect him to play in the preseason. Could he play? Probably, I think, right? But they have 6 weeks. So that's an additional month and a half before he has to go out there and get hit. And that's a long time.
Is there a pickle in this? Is there a pickle for the Colts in the fact that if Daniel Jones you are going to protect in the preseason, that means that you then have to give more reps to Anthony Richardson, and there is the possibility that he then goes out and wows you, and now you're in a tough spot?
Well, they would not see it as being in a tough spot because
their decision's made.
Right. Your decision was made when you signed him to an $88 million contract.
Right.
So it's a fair question.
From a PR standpoint.
Right. I mean, it may raise questions for sure, right? That is always possible. But I don't think they will backtrack. In fact, I think there's zero chance
I
they
agree
would
with that.
backtrack.
The better question is,
could it create a line of questioning for us? Yes, absolutely.
Could it create, and is it then, if we're going away from pickle and saying the positive, could Anthony Richardson getting reps in the preseason and playing well be an actual fortune for the Colts because then finally he has trade value? Or is his trade value determined and it doesn't matter whether or not he looks like the greatest thing since sliced bread?
I think it'd help at least some. The question right now is, what is the market? Like, so in theory, the market would be, all right, because like who's looking for a quarterback right now? The answer is not many, if any, teams, right? Because you thought about your quarterback lineup 3 months ago, right? And you dealt with that, 3 or 4 months ago. So I think if the door opens, it's probably going to be somebody getting hurt or someone struggling. And you realize, man, our quarterback depth chart sucks. We got to do something, right? That can't happen. Like, we're just talking about the Colts wide receivers, right? They're looking at this thing now, and they're like, we might have to do something here. Well, what if that's Team X, and that's their quarterback room, right? That could happen. And so when you look around at who's available, it's going to be a short list, right? And so, because there's 90 men on every roster. So that's where he comes into play as a possibility, I think.
Is Riley Leonard a backup quarterback for the Colts because they truly believe in him and they liked him, they drafted, or they acquired him? I can't remember if was he a late draft?
He was a 6th-round pick.
Yes. So they drafted him and they thought, we really like the foundation here, and this is a guy that can become a nice, solid backup for us. Or is Riley Leonard the backup because they thought, why not take a flyer here and see what develops? And then as the time that happened, there was attrition in front of him, and so he was just moved up by happenstance.
Okay, so I would say he was drafted because of the latter, which is, well, the former, I guess, which is he was a guy they were taking a flyer on.
Right.
Then when they drafted him, that was it. It was like, I don't know. This guy's got a long way to go, but maybe he's smart. There's something there. Maybe we'll figure it out. So that was the basis on which he was drafted. He got here, and frankly, I don't think he changed that perception when he got here. I think it was still the same.
Right.
To be
the
completely
situation
honest.
Changed, right?
The situation changed, right. And that situation was Daniel Jones getting hurt, and frankly, them losing all those games up until week 18. If they're still in the hunt, he never plays, to be honest with you. They had no intention of playing him. They really didn't. I do not believe that.
Do they now? I mean, I know that Daniel Jones
right.
is your starter. But do they – and by the way, your flashlight on your phone is on. I only pointed out because it's going to drain your battery, or it was.
Okay.
If your phone's like me, it's got a mind of its own. Do they now – Daniel Jones is your guy. We know that.
Right.
Is there a world that Chris Ballard looks at it and says, then Riley Leonard's our guy?
Not at the moment. I still think –
I'm saying if Jones is hurt. Is that the guy?
So I think the answer varies depending on who you're asking. You just mentioned Chris Ballard. Unless Chris Ballard is just selling selling us on Anthony Richardson to get the trade value up. I tend to believe, because he's talking him up right now, right, and has been for a while. And I think there's certainly the possibility. I will allow for the possibility that he's blowing smoke up our rear end, okay, and that he's trying to pump up the trade value, right?
I mean, it'd be smart of him, right?
It would be, absolutely. But I also think there is a part of him that actually believes some of that. And it's not that incredible. It's not that big of a stretch to believe that, like, you watch him and say, look, there's something there. He's certainly talented. He's still 24 years old, which is insane, right? Who's to say that he can't be a competent quarterback at some point? Now, will that happen here? I sincerely doubt it, if it happens at all. But I still think there's a part of Chris Ballard that actually believes that. Now, Shane Steichen is very much onto, like, all right, we got to play, we got to go, I got to get it done. And he's, in his mind, I don't want to speak for him, so this is me talking. My interpretation, when I listen to Shane Steichen talk about Anthony Richardson, my interpretation of what we're hearing there is, I tried it, it didn't work, I got stuff to do. We're moving on. That's what I hear.
Right.
And so I don't think they're aligned on that. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world, but I don't think the two are completely aligned. I will say this in closing. Yesterday, Shane Steichen did, offer maybe a slightly more open-minded approach to Anthony Richardson, which may tell us something.
Elaborate.
Meaning, maybe he understands which way the wind is blowing, which is that Chris Ballard, who's going to make the roster decisions, is like, I actually want this guy on the roster. So he insists that his intention right now is to have all three of those quarterbacks on his roster.
Okay.
So we will see.
You have, as we all do, there are famous restaurants. Stephen Holder's my guest here from ESPN.com. There are famous restaurants that are known for one or two signature dishes. And then you go into the restaurant and people get surprised because you actually order something completely different than that on the menu.
Right.
And you say, people were so focused on the steak and the shrimp cocktail or the pizza and the breadsticks that they didn't notice how good the salad bar is or the tomato soup. What is
it's or in the salmon at St. Elmo's, right?
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
Which, by the way, do that. It's good.
That would be a Shannon special right there. She absolutely.
I knew I liked her.
So with this football team, what is that dish? What is the one that people don't realize it, but it's there, and it's better than people think?
This is good. I think the offensive line. Now, maybe more people know that than I think. But, like, if you go back 5 years, right, with that group they had, everybody in the NFL knew, that group right there, they're a top 5 offensive line, right? They have had – it's such an interesting thing, like the life cycle of an NFL, like, unit or even a roster, but even going a little more granular, an offensive line or the wide receiver room or whatever. You have 2 or 3 guys usually like, those are mainstays. Just wait 3 years, they'll all be gone. And so we've seen that to some degree here. There's Quentin Nelson, and then everybody else is different.
Right.
They've all changed.
I mean, Ryman obviously is a guy that's going to be here a while, we'd assume.
Bridge, I guess, between the two generations of those offensive lines. Right. That's a good point. But generally speaking, I mean, from that the height of that, the apex was probably like 2018-19. None of those guys except for Quentin Nelson are still here. So they've had to rebuild that entire thing. And teams completely screw that process up. It is a hard thing, right? You got 5 guys, and you got to find 5 viable pieces. Normally, you find 2 or 3, and then you piece it together from there. They've actually found at least 4 really consistent, viable players, and then number 5, Jalen Travis at right tackle. We're going to find out. But I like what I've seen so far. I give them a lot of credit for doing that because that has enabled us to see what we have seen so far from Daniel Jones.
I've always asked this, Stephen. It's kind of a rhetorical question, or repetitive because I've asked it a lot. Do you think most coaches, most GMs, most football people would tell you that they would rather have a lineman that is a 9.5 but can only play one position, or a lineman that is a 6 at 2 different positions?
That is interesting. So my cop-out answer is you need a couple of 9s, and then you need the rest of them to be those 6s.
Right.
That's what you need.
And that's kind of what they have, though, right?
That is kind of what they
because
have.
Because Quentin Nelson's a 9.5 or a 10,
sure,
right?
For sure.
Ryman's an 8.5?
Yeah, I wouldn't say 9, but he's definitely
And then
up there.
outside of – then you've got between Bortolini and, Tucker and, Gonzalez, and you mentioned, Jalen Travis.
Right.
Those guys are all – probably 6.5s, but a lot of them can play in two different areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, so say Bortolini, for example, I think could play guard and has played different positions in college. Gonzalez has played tackle; he's playing guard now. They are going to stay at where they're at, right? They have semi-permanent positions just because they have a good lineup. But if necessary, if there were an injury tomorrow, they may retool that, right? Because they can. And I think that's a good thing to be able to do that. You have to do it. You got, 47 players available on game day, right? I mean, there's no alternative. You're going to have on game day, if you're lucky, you got 7 offensive linemen.
Right.
And so the odds of, one guy getting a concussion, are always legitimate, right? And then you're down to one guy, right? What if somebody twists an ankle and has to come out for a couple plays, right? These things happen every single Sunday.
I want to go over this before we let you go. Stephen Holder, my guest here from ESPN.com.
Oh, so I get to leave at some point. This is good.
Once they bring the keys over, then I undo your latch and you're free to leave the room.
That's right.
The 1 hour practices. Let's begin with this. Yesterday and today, I don't know if they're different. You watched them do what? For fans that are not here, that didn't see it, that are curious, the practice looks like what?
It moves pretty quickly right now for this first week in particular because they're in the so-called ramp-up period, right? And so, an hour and 5 minutes or something is nothing. It goes quick. 20 minutes of it is individual drills, and they're working on the running backs are working on footwork and blocking, and that's sort of the fundamental teaching part of practice, right? So that's like the first 20 minutes of this thing, and then there's 30 minutes of teamwork, another 10 or 15 of special teams. So,
and how much of this is everybody working together versus the respective units are working individually?
Yeah, so I would say probably maybe a good half of it is actual teamwork. When I say teamwork, not teamwork like you and me working together, but just like the full team, right? The full team working 11 on 11, 7 on 7, that kind of thing. So when they're doing 7 on 7, for example, you don't have offensive defensive line, right? So once they aren't in pads now, but once they put pads on, that's when those guys go down the other field and have their blocking and rushing drills against each other, pass rush drills, what have you. So, you kind of get a smorgasbord going sometimes, where you have multiple things happening, but you can also see the 7-on-7 action, which is always fun, right? That's the ball's getting put in the air.
Right.
So that's fun to watch. But if you're old school, you want to go see Quentin Nelson.
It is. That's how it feels. Like you still feel like that's what this. Everybody's going to run over to the water hose in a second here and get, and then they're right back at it. But okay, so then now, yesterday, for example, they were done at 11:15ish.
Yeah.
Okay. By your understanding, then the rest of the day looks like what? In other words, right now here we are at the 12 o'clock hour. They've been done for an hour or so. The team and the players are where and doing what?
So. A couple things. There's usually a weightlifting session or schedule, I should say. So I don't know if they've changed this or not, but the way it used to work is after practice, can you imagine coming out here for an hour and a half and then all right, it's your day for the weight room. So now you get to go lift weights for an hour. It's pretty brutal, actually. So anyway, they've got that all mapped out. Certain guys, they used to do, I don't know what the schedule is now, but they used to be all right, big guys should lift on these days. Skill guys, the quote-unquote little guys, you lift on the other days. So that's part of it. Just to keep them, conditioned. You can't just you can't stop that stuff when off-season workouts ends, right? You got to keep working. So they dial it back, but you still do that. A lot of refueling the body, right? All those things. Go see the trainer. Get worked on, right? If you need an IV, get an IV, right? You got to do this again tomorrow, man, right? So And then ton of meetings. You're going to have position meetings. You're going to have full team meeting, probably in the morning. You're going to have offense, defense, special teams if you're on special teams, right? So a lot of sessions where you're basically sitting in a classroom, to be completely honest.
Film?
So, yeah. You're going to go over the practice film.
This takes place where?
In the big indoor facility. They've got all those facilities set up there. And then I don't know exactly how long they keep them, but they're staying obviously in the hotel just across the way there. So guys get on their motor scooter and head over there for.
But do they have limitation on where they can? And I don't mean to just make it sound like it's jail. I don't mean that.
Well, it is training camp. It's kind of jail.
Right. I mean, like, are they allowed to, head out and go home until 9 o'clock and come back, or how does that work?
I don't know their schedule currently, but my understanding in the past is they have had a little bit of free time in the evening, but you got to check in at a certain time at the hotel. So, and it's not a lot of time. It's not a lot. They are close to home, right? A lot of these guys live in Carmel, Westfield.
That's what I mean.
So, could you sneak home for 30 minutes? I think there might be some opportunities for that. But at the same time, there's not a lot of it. That's why you see the families out here every day, because that's their opportunity for the kids to see daddy.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's really
I saw DeForest Buckner was riding around with his presumably his child.
Yeah, Mooney Ward came and did a press conference with us with his son. And he was holding his son. He's like, he was out there in the hot sun. I figured I'd bring him here. So
I have by the way, are you ready for my old man yelling at clouds hot take?
I do it too sometimes.
It's an unpopular opinion.
So mine is speakerphones. I hate it.
Listen, Steven.
Stop it.
I had to go the other day. I had to get a new car, right?
Yes.
So I got my license plates transfer. I just wanted to transfer my license plates. I go to the license branch. It says you can't do that. So I go in and I sit down. I meet with somebody. She was very helpful, and I paid an exorbitant amount of money.
Yes.
I thought, well, that's
Thank you,
weird.
State of Indiana.
And I said, well, don't you just give me the little sticker that I put on the car? And she said, that'll come in the mail. A brand new license plate arrives, and I thought, well, I just wanted to transfer the plate. So I went back in, and they ended up they said, well, no, they gave me a new plate because they re-registered a car that I had 27 years ago.
Oh my God!
I'm like, no, I don't have that car anymore. That's not. So I had to go and redo all of this, and then that meant reimbursement of some money and whatever else. One thing I noticed at the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, which is a fascinating study of culture.
Yes, it
is. I was sitting in the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, and I'll give them credit; they're faster than they used to be, but 68% of all people were wearing flip-flops, and 47% of them were either watching a video or FaceTiming on speaker.
Just diabolical.
Honestly.
It's just diabolical.
I'm just like, what are we doing here, right? So
who raised you?
Right. So here is my old man yelling at clouds that folks are going to hate. I don't necessarily mean in this setting. That's a little different.
Yes.
But in post-game settings, and in potentially like awkward settings, I think bringing a young child to a press conference is like a shield. I think it's a cheap shield, and I think it's done because you're saying there's no way anybody's going to ask me a hard-hitting question when I'm holding my 4-year-old in my lap.
Okay.
And I think players, in particular NBA-wise, there were times where I think Steph Curry used to do it, and everybody was like, it's great. He brought his cute little kid in here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, except for the fact that you just went 3 of 18 and missed the last 2 shots in regulation, and now we can't ask you about that because how big a jerk do we look by asking you an uncomfortable question when your kid is there?
It's funny you said, because the only thing I remember about those press conferences that he did, and there were many, the only thing I remember was her sort of stealing the show.
Right.
Yeah. And she was just –
she's a cute kid,
very
of course.
Cute. Right. And, I know her name because of this, right?
Right.
So there's something to that. I agree with you. I think there is an exception to this setting, right? Because, no one's lost a game yet, right? There's no –
right. I get it.
We haven't even kicked this thing off. But I generally think there could be something to that. Now, whether they are actively thinking that in every instance –
in this situation, no.
No, right. But I'm saying whether every athlete who does that is thinking about it in those terms, maybe not. But I do think that is sort of a consequence of it, for sure.
But just for example, and I'm not saying he would do this in casting him in a negative light, but Anthony Richardson, at the time that he requested a trade, if the first time that he was made available to the media to discuss the fact that he'd requested a trade, he brought his little brother with him.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, right?
Right. Well, I think you'd have to, tread maybe a little differently, but the question would still have to be asked.
Okay, last question then would be this. Along the lines of the dinner question, tell me now the area of this Colts team through 2 practices that the more you look at it, the more you say, we haven't talked about it, and I thought they were going to be okay, but this is potentially a concern because I just don't see the depth or the players that I need to at that area.
Running back, Jonathan Taylor, he's a decent player. You might know this. But he has a somewhat of an injury history. He's a running back, for crying out loud, right? I don't like the depth chart there. I just don't.
Hold on. I got to see if my guy's still here. Hang on.
Oh, that's right.
Hold on. I'm looking here. Oh, yeah, indeed. You're obviously, and I understand it, you've not been looking at number 37, right?
Could you refresh my memory?
That's Ulysses Bentley. Ulysses yesterday, actually, he got a little bit of free time, went to Zionsville to the Polo Grounds, but he's made it back for practice. Ulysses Bentley the fourth, man.
I mean, there have been 3 of them already. We should know them.
That's right.
We should know these people. There's been 3 of them already before him.
That's correct, yeah.
So, yeah, I just think, like DJ Giddens is in year 2. There's a reason they didn't play him last year, man. You know what I mean? Like, they took him.
Too limited, right? And what he could do?
There was something missing, and I don't know exactly what it was, but there was something missing there. I frankly just think he didn't really show a lot of vision when he did play. When you're running into the backs of your offensive linemen, it's usually not a good sign.
Right.
So that's one thing. Now they have Seth McGowan, who they drafted this year out of Kentucky. Interesting backstory there, the criminal situation at Oklahoma years ago, but has actually turned it around and had an impressive college career. But I mean, we know nothing about this kid, right? We absolutely know nothing about him. So I can't even begin to tell you he's going to be a factor yet. So all I can tell you is Jonathan Taylor stay on the field.
And Jonathan Taylor, realistically, Stephen, Jonathan Taylor needs Daniel Jones.
Oh, sure.
I mean, if you look a year ago, Jonathan Taylor's a wonderful talent, great player. He needs Daniel Jones.
So I'll tell you a little bit of the reality around that. There's no question the last 5 games or so, Jonathan Taylor was a non-factor.
Right.
It was bad. And I actually don't blame him because I think there was a lot of criticism like, well, I mean, shouldn't he be able to give him something? And I agree with that. The problem is it was all served up on a platter for defenses.
Of course.
They knew the quarterback couldn't move. They were having to be in shotgun. Okay, Daniel Jones can vary his approach. They can go under center. They can go shotgun. And then you have some element of surprise with the running game. You can vary the types of runs that you employ. They couldn't do any of that. And so it just makes it easier on the defense, and frankly, who are they game planning for at that point? Like Pierce.
Right.
They're game planning for 28, right? And we stop him, we win. And that's what they did.
Stephen Holder will have all of the coverage on ESPN, ESPN.com. I don't think I ever noticed when you're on TV that you're bald.
Yeah.
You don't wear a hat on TV, right?
I do not. I did not suddenly grow a head of hair for a SportsCenter hit.
But on TV, your head looks pretty normal, and here it's kind of a cone type configuration.
Well, I appreciate that.
When I'm looking at it straight on, it's more of a cone.
Well, thank God
thing.
It looks good on TV.
but on TV, the camera doesn't seem to have the right angling, and so therefore it looks more symmetrical. You look more freakish in person.
So my head looks.
Which is most people look more freakish on television. You look more freakish in person.
All I know is that the camera adding 10 pounds is real, by the way.
Well,
and maybe it's in my head and it looks bigger, so it's not cone shaped. It's just more proportionate, I guess.
The off camera adds 10 pounds, and it adds it in some sort of a weird configuration on the top of your head I've never before noticed.
And that's why the listeners.
I mean, I'm not even a Braves fan, but the Braves hat looks good on you, for crying out loud.
That's why the listeners too.
All of this, though, I say all of this after you told me I have great hair, which is greatly appreciated. Much appreciated, and we'll obviously see you back out here tomorrow as well.
All right,
Stephen Holder, maybe will join us again at some point. right, we'll come back. We'll check in with J&B in just a little bit, find out what he is warming up for his program coming up at 3 o'clock today on this day number 2 Colts camp, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Back here in Westfield, Colts camp, day number 2, camp number 2 is in the books. And the good news would be this. I guess if we were to do at the end of each day like a good, bad, and ugly, the good would be the fact that at this point, no injuries. I mean, this is, we're only, and they're hardly going out, and this is not exactly manual labor to this point, but nonetheless, we have certainly seen in years past where it's not unprecedented, a non-contact or just kind of a freak injury. None of that taking place in any way, shape, or form. I don't know that you would say necessarily there's bad and ugly, other than I would probably advise Holder on the hat more often than not, but, that's beside the point, for what that's worth. But, no, the reality is you just heard us talking about it, what is kind of the schedule of events over the course of today and where they go now and what we look forward to in terms of tomorrow. All elsewhere around in the world of sports, it is Big Ten Media Days. I believe, Eddie, today is Curt Cignetti Day with Indiana, correct?
Yeah, I can't wait to see if he drops the hammer down on the SEC.
Now, there's a lot of anticipation about this. I heard Kevin and James talking about it this morning. I certainly know that the SEC gets plenty of love. I would like for you to elaborate on why you have the expectation that there's the possibility he would drop the hammer on the SEC.
Oh, just because, everyone, like you mentioned yesterday, Jake, they are not talking about Indiana in regards to being a contender again for winning the college football playoff. It's all about, the teams in the SEC. It's about Ohio State. It's about everyone other than Indiana. And I'm interested in with the whole SEC thing and Commissioner Sankey, suggesting that they could be leaving the SEC and or the NCAA and forming their own little, whatever conference or league that you've talked about before. I'm fascinated to see what Mr. Cignetti has to say on that front, if anything.
My prediction is Cignetti's a fascinating character. And the reason he's a fascinating character is because he has made his entire identity and brand around the fact that he is immune to caring what people think, to an extent, right? And,
yep.
I think he thrives a little on it. And so there's a bit of a hypocrisy because the perception is, or the demeanor is, fine. If you guys don't think that we're good, if whatever, if you want to talk about, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, fine, do that. And the thing about Cignetti that jumps out is just being peculiar is he's mastered this almost psychological game. He's mastered this psychological game where outwardly he has this weird, almost nerdy bravado that he doesn't care about that and that he's immune to it, while at the same time using it to fuel his exact approach in coaching and to his team.
Mm-hmm.
The band of misfits, the world against us. This is a guy that wears like one of three different 3-year-old version on sale at the discount store pullovers and kind of just dorky Docker type pants and reader glasses that he bought for $11, and then stands on the sidelines with kind of the fish hands behind him on the hips,
like a computer processing everything.
Totally, right? I mean, he looks like, quite frankly, he looks like an auxiliary character on The Office, right? Just a side character on The Office. And he does not look like a football coach, and he certainly doesn't look like, a super cool dude. Yet, he's in high demand. He's getting speaking engagements. He is seen as uber cool, and, right now he is at the top of the game. And he doesn't really need to answer to any of that doubt about himself or his program, and doubt that he, to a great extent, feeds and fuels into and a narrative that he is almost responsible for having being created, because of the fact that what makes him cool is he just doesn't care, but in reality, he clearly does, because that's his motivation. Now, I also think there is an element of Curt Cignetti, and again, this is a combination of super cool and super, I guess to an extent you envy it. There is an element of him that he's almost unaware at times of perceptions in terms of the way things are going to be ingested once he says it. And so he has no filter, right? And I think he knew when Curt Cignetti first took the job at Indiana, which now feels like a million years ago, but it wasn't. And when he came in and he interviewed and he thought about taking that job, he walked around the hallways of Assembly Hall. He walked through the complex. He walked around the campus. And by his own admission, what he saw was a group of people and an entire foundation of individuals and culture, to use a buzzword, of defeat. He saw total disbelief. Everywhere he went, he saw disbelief. Everywhere he looked, he heard disbelief. He came on this radio station, and we basically told him of disbelief. It's great that you got the Indiana job, and I know you won at James Madison, and you got to the point where you were in the Division I AA, playoff, and you coached at the other Indiana in Pennsylvania, but nobody's lost more games than Indiana. We've heard it all before. Sam White was going to change the color scheme and have the new logo with the big U running down the side, and he was here long enough to not win a game and then said, I'm out of here. I think he won a couple of games and then took the job in Cincinnati. Bill Mallory took over and was a hard-nosed, true-to-root football guy and went 0-11 in his first year and then became the best coach in program history, but the ceiling was the Peach Bowl. And, Kevin Wilson came in and had this Ohio State background of offensive high-flying, or actually Oklahoma, and then went to Ohio State, background of offensive high-flying, coordinator genius and kind of gruff and didn't care and was in your face and showed some progress but was just kind of there, right? Jerry DiNardo coached at LSU and had been in the SEC and knows how to win and won at programs that needed to be jump-started, and it was just kind of there. And so Cignetti comes in, and while he had the pedigree from a wins and losses standpoint, the first thing that he learned was nobody around here seems to believe any of this. So he came out with the just Google me, and he came out with the Ohio State sucks, but so does Michigan and so does Purdue. And he came out, and he knew he had to do that because he had to change the disbelief into not a disbelief in the program, but a disbelief in, does this guy really believe this? And once he went through that first year, and yes, I thought he got exposed a little bit in that Notre Dame semifinal game where he went on, and I said it before and I'll say it again. He went on College Game Day on the sidelines, and I think he thought that he was actually on McAfee's show, which is a different tenure, a different tenor, a different mindset, and a different just approach. And so he went on there, and he kind of went under this, like he continued that same bravado. And it's like, dude, your team is warming up right now for a national semifinal. And they were beaten pretty handily. And I think he learned from that, and he learned when and where to have the bravado. And so I'm curious now that he is the defending national champion. He doesn't have to prove, in fact, that the culture is one now of belief, because it is. He just went undefeated. He just had a season that was the most prolific in terms of wins in 125 years in college football history. And so what more is there to prove other than just stay true to himself, which is, I am who I am. I am who I am. And I don't know that he finds now empowerment in trying to answer to the belittlement of his program by countering that. I think he goes out and just is, I'm just, got a guy I've always been, and we got a football team, we got new faces, and he goes with that Barney Fife type mentality that you kind of love. But I'll be surprised if he comes out guns a-blazing against the SEC. I may be totally wrong.
I think he'll come out guns a-blazing. It's just a matter of, is it against the SEC? Is it against the media? Is it against whomever? Just because of the fact that they are the reigning champs, they did go undefeated, and it just doesn't feel like, as college football is nearing, that on the national level they are talking about Indiana the way that they should be. They're not talking about Indiana, even though they are the reigning champions, and that they went, 16-0?
Eddie, if you go back to, and I'm going back a ways here, right, but it's because we went through a couple of periods of dynasty there. If you go back to like when Auburn won it, when Cam Newton came in and took college football by storm, I don't know, I'm talking like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was, because then you had the Alabama kind of, dynasty followed by the Clemson mini dynasty, and Ohio State has been outstanding now throughout and intermixed with all of that. But Auburn was kind of an anomaly season. I know it's a super rich program in history, but they had not had great team. Bring Cam Newton in, and by like week 6, you're like, these guys might be pretty good. And then you realize, yes, in fact, they were very good.
Yeah, but wasn't that the last time of the previous iteration before the CFP? It was Auburn and Oregon?
I think
Cam
it was.
Newton versus Marcus Mariota?
Yeah, that's right. So, but my point being, after that, Auburn wasn't exactly the toast of college football even the next season because there was the thought of, okay, they're good, but their quarterback was such a big part of that, and they were not an anomaly, but they broke through because they had this transcendent talent that got them over the top, and that talent's not there now. And I think that there's an element of thought of that about Mendoza because Hoover is an outstanding quarterback, and they did a fabulous job of going out and not only getting a quarterback but getting weapons as well for him to throw to, and they've elevated their level of, there's no doubt about it, their roster in general is better than it was a year ago. However, with all of that said, there is still a new face at the most important position, a new face for them. There was a year ago. But so much of Indiana's offense was based upon Mendoza's ability to audible, maneuver, run. They won the national championship, as Turnbuckle Bill, rest in peace, predicted on this radio show. They'll win the national championship by Fernando Mendoza surprising them with his legs, which is exactly what happened on that play that salted that game away against Miami. But I don't know that Hoover brings that element. Now, Indiana has gifted enough coaches to come up with the game plan to cater to Hoover's elements. But that aspect and that curveball to it is one of the things that I think gives people pause, and because it is still Indiana. And so you just don't think of it in your mind in branding as this is the same as Ohio State or Clemson or Alabama or LSU or one of those that if they win the national title, you go, yeah, they're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah,
I think people know that Indiana's not going away, but they don't know that they're going to be that Indiana.
Well, I mean, they were still good with Curtis Rourke, Jake. It's not like it was just all the quarterback.
Again,
they improved so much defensively from year one to year two.
They did.
And up front specifically, they invested so much in that offensive line.
Understood. But again, a year ago, the thing that made them different than when they had Curtis Rourke, who's a great player, one of the greats in IU history, no question. But when they played with Curtis Rourke in Columbus and they played in South Bend, for the majority of the time in those games, you felt like they had a tiger by the tail and they probably, the roof was about to cave in on them. With Mendoza, they had this it factor that when they most needed it, the guy just continued to consistently make plays. He found Surratt. He found Cooper. He got up after getting smacked down to the turf against Ohio State, and he answered the bell every single time. I'm not saying other quarterbacks that Hoover can't be that guy. I'm just saying he did it so exceptionally that creates in people's mind the idea of the perception that they were bailed out by him, and now what becomes without him, they become a very good program, but not the 16-0 national championship. I'm not saying that's the reality of what they are. I'm saying that's the national perspective of it. But that fuels and feeds into exactly what, theoretically, Curt Cignetti will use to motivate Hoover and to motivate this particular roster. We'll check in with John. We have State Fair tickets to give away, do we not, Eddie?
Yes.
A 4-pack to give away. You want to do that on the text line?
That sounds good to me.
239-1070. I will let Eddie. What number are you going to pick here, Eddie? Number what? Boom, go with it.
We got to go with 7 for Charvarius Ward, right?
He was great earlier today. Mooney Ward was great earlier today. Encourage you to listen to that podcast coming up between the hours of now and 3 p.m. after I sign off, because John will be on at 3, and we'll find out what John's got cooking. We'll do it on the other side, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com, 317-353-2141. That check-in with John is next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Back at Droplight, Grand Park up in Westfield. Colts camp and practice day number 2 is in the books. Thanks again to Charvarius Mooney Ward for joining us earlier on the program. Also, Steve Campbell, Stephen Holder as well. All of that available again on podcast, but we ask that you curb your podcast listening to those interviews or those from the morning between the hours of 3 and 6 so that you can listen to John live. J&B joins us now. Brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com, 317-353-2141. The telephone number on an absolutely gorgeous Thursday. John, what do you got planned for the big program today?
Caden Curry, the pride of City Grove, the rookie, is going to join us on the show later on today. In fact, I did not know this, but evidently people up there have been yelling at him the first 2 days talking about Fernando Mendoza and that hit to him. So we're going to get into that dialogue with him later on today. And Zach Osterman's up in Chicago. Kurt Signetti, Big Ten football meetings going on. And Mike Chappell out there with you will join us a little bit later on today, too.
John, you're going to laugh when I say this. Do you think there's any chance during this camp that Caden Curry at any point will be that they'll tap into for emergency purposes? His ability to long snap, because he's done that in the past. I think he mentioned it to you when he was drafted.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things that you get one or two guys that get hurt in that situation. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. We might, what happens here? Do you think they will explore that at all with him?
I'm not. I'd guess every avenue would be available, and I wouldn't count him out because he's been counted out a number of times, and he always is the type of dude that will prove you wrong. So he's an interesting dude. He really is. He's got a lot of challenge in him. He's got a lot of patience too. And he's not a guy, as we'll talk about, that makes the same mistake twice. And I said, I need some of that because I make the same mistake like every day, 3 or 4 times. I said, I don't know how anybody copes otherwise. But no, it's a hell of a story, and I hope it has a very, very good part of that particular novel here in Indy for him, too. We'll see, though. There's a lot of work to do.
Last night, by the way, John, Everwise Amphitheater over at the Lawn, I saw Britt Floyd, which is like the renowned Pink Floyd cover band. Tribute. You always know that they're upper level when they say tribute band and not cover band.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you stand on Pink Floyd, and notably on Britt Floyd, if you're familiar with them?
I saw Division Bell, well, at least a lot of it, back in '94. It was at the then RCA Dome, Division Bell, and Pink Floyd. It was a good time. I wasn't really into their music, and I spent some time in the bathroom there for a while, too. That was a noted hour in the bathroom that I spent in the RCA Dome with friends. Friends in the bathroom.
Huh.
Yeah, I know that sounds really weird, but no.
Should I ask for elaboration on that?
Well, yeah, you could if you walk out there, you kind of know it didn't end like it did back in the '80s with the dude that took the swan dive from the upper deck, which I sat with him once upon a time at the Crazy Horse. So he was an interesting dude back then. But no, I thought it was great. I'm not the biggest of Pink Floyd fans, but going to see them at least once, I'm glad I got a chance to do it, and it was during the Division Bell tour back in the day.
I will say it was impressive. I mean, they were pretty on it last night. Pink Floyd was, in terms of how much they sound. Not a huge Pink Floyd fan, but John Oriovitz was or is, and he was there, and he enjoyed it. My cousin enjoyed it, so it was fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
No, Shannon.
All right,
Shannon didn't go
today.
See Britt Floyd. No,
Shannon did go.
Is it Brick or Brit? Brit as in Britain or Brick?
Brit as in British. We are British. Yes.
It could say Brick Floyd though. That would also work. Right?
That would
brick in the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shannon went and did enjoy it, and I told Oreo afterwards that John Oriovitz is now in the category of people that she likes more than she likes me. So that's cool.
Man,
you know what I mean? They got along.
Nah, well, good for Orovitz.
That's right.
Hey, by the way,
right,
Mooney's a good dude
listening.
too. Well done with Mooney today. Good guy.
He was great, man. He was a great interview, no question about it. All right, we'll be back with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eddie, did you give away the State Fair tickets? I'll take that as a yes. Back with you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Query and Company, thanks for listening.